It has nothing to do with shrubbery or anything leafy. That's tree.
Or a sting.
It's a number, brother.
Or a sting.
Yes.
Okay. There's a company that's advertised for a job of a pilot.
I thought you were going to say, again today, Kiara is harassing you.
No. I accepted my fate. I was on the wrong. I accept my fate.
And you will suffer the consequences.
I'll suffer the consequences.
Okay. Wasn't too painful, though.
It is painful. Believe me. When someone tells you, trust you, me, who do they want you to trust?
Me. You trust me.
Trust you, me.
Yeah.
Who's to be trusted?
Me.
Not you.
No, you are the one who's trusting me.
Trust you.
Yes, you. The
Me.
trust is being put upon you towards me. N'est-ce pas?
Why don't they say trust?
Isn't it?
Of course it is.
Okay. Stick around for today. We're going to be discussing a number of things. One, we will be talking about data and the statistics around data. Today, we'll be speaking to somebody, a senior manager at Safaricom, who will tell us what exactly is happening in terms of consumption trends for data and online content. And then we will ask ourselves, are hospitals running scared of COVID? Very many cases arising of, medical workers in hospitals not really being keen on dealing with people who are showing symptoms of COVID-19.
Right.
And we've seen this being reported on social media. It's even in the newspaper today. So we'll be discussing that. And there's a lot of politics that's happening anyway. So we have a lot to discuss today.
Who's going where and who is not?
Who's going where? Who's dumping who? What relationship is working? What's not working? All those things. Yeah. Anyway, let's start where we always begin. And there's a lot coming. Okay. There's also the issue of drinks. Food and drinks from outside will not be allowed.
They never
Inside.
are they? They never really are they?
Yeah. Fellow Kenyans, in the last 24 hours.
Let's look at the globe first before we look at Kenya. 15 million cases. The world has crossed that mark, and it was touted as, by the time we get to 15 million, surely we would have been able to catch up with COVID and would have been able to put certain things in place so that there could be some kind of understanding, comprehension around what COVID is and how we'd be able to sort out these issues. Unfortunately, that hasn't quite happened. 15,093,712. That is a global tally of COVID. The United States, as of yesterday, having crossed the 4 million case mark with 4,028,569 and inching closer and closer as the days go by to 150,000 deaths. This is what's going on. This is what we see. And Kenya also, in terms of crossing a number yesterday, crossed the 14,000 case mark. So it's 14,168 with 250 deaths in Kenya. This is what we are looking at now. And if we continue to look at nations around the world, Brazil at 2,166,000, India at 1.1 million, Russia at 783,000, South Africa now at 381,798. Interestingly enough, from South Africa yesterday, we saw that they are actually, with COVID, it's still very difficult to predict. But with what they have been seeing so far as indicators, likely that they would be well over 400,000 by the time the weekend rolls around. Yep. Mexico, the highest number of deaths that we've seen ever in the last 6 hours has occurred in Mexico now. With 6,859 cases, they have recognized almost 1,000 deaths in that time. 915 deaths in the last 7 hours coming out of Mexico. This one, they're really having a very, very difficult time.
Again, I need to ask the question. When they say 1,000, is it 1,000 who died within the hour?
Yes. That's
and
the
recorded
problem.
within the hour?
Yeah.
Or is it reported at that particular point in time, so the number was 1,000?
This is the difficult thing with Mexico, that as these numbers are coming, they're seeing that more deaths and more deaths and more deaths are being recorded.
Again, it's more deaths occurring or more deaths being reported?
More deaths occurring. That's why it's so difficult in Mexico, specifically Mexico.
Wait, more deaths being reported.
Occurring.
Of course, they've occurred, but when did they occur?
Yeah, now this is the thing. If they had occurred 10 hours ago, then that would be different. But this is the thing, and I'm being able to read up on this and actually looking even further. And it's being said that even as the numbers are being given that we're testing and receiving more cases, within those hours, they're able to collate and say another death has occurred, yet another one has occurred, and another one has occurred.
So their reporting is timely.
They're reporting actually.
It's real time.
It's like real time.
It's like real time reporting.
Death, now it goes into the system immediately and it registers somewhere. Ding,
That's why they're having a problem, and that's why it's being seen like this. The number will rise by the end of this day. By the end of today, this number will be more than 915. However, it would have been those that were not added by the time that they were giving this this tally of 6,860.
You know why I ask? If that is true, then you're saying that on this planet, Mexico has one of the most advanced healthcare systems. Because to collate it means you're collecting from the far-flung places within the country.
Yeah.
And you're able to know that immediately. And this is difficult even in what you call developed nations, the developed systems.
Yeah.
They also
Even in
cannot...
America.
Yes, even, you just think of any. They do not have the capacity to do this.
So what is the
75%
average?
of the-
What is the
75% of
average?
the
What,
deaths are
within
coming out
24
of-
hours or within 48 hours? So by the time a death is reported now,
Yes.
when is it likely to have occurred?
You see, it is a question of two things. COVID-related, death not COVID-related. Okay? The fact that you need to distinguish and then report,
Takes some time.
it does take some time.
Okay.
So I would give it 24 hours.
Okay.
Yes. And that is
75%
in a system that is really, really
Robust
good. Robust,
and-
yes.
75% of these deaths are coming out of Mexico City, interestingly enough. And it's that's what from what they've been able to collect and tell us, or rather put on the world stage.
If you remember, even with Kenya, for the longest time, it was Nairobi, then it was Mombasa, and the other counties within the Republic were not reporting anything, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we kept saying, are you telling us that there are no people in the rest of the country who... And then we began the testing. And then the numbers started coming in, isn't it? And then deaths related to COVID started coming in. So sometimes, I think what we deal with, I would say, the bulk of the reports that we're getting are coming from Mexico City, and then I would leave it at that. Because to argue that it is representative of the entire country of Mexico may not necessarily be totally accurate.
No, I don't think so.
Mexico is a big country.
Yeah, and this is what we're saying. So now, I don't believe that they have been able to collect what's happening around the country.
The entire country.
No.
Probably they are collecting, but it's not being reported immediately. So by the time, let's say they are doing that tally now of 7,000, it's what they have collected, the information that they have so far.
At that point in time.
Yeah. Maybe some deaths happened 48 hours ago, others 24 hours ago, others 6 hours ago.
Remember also that the process of testing and determining whether this particular person died of COVID, that test is not instantaneous. It's not a rapid test. Okay? So that also takes some time. So everything about it, there's some time involved in it.
Some lag.
There has to be a lag. Yes.
Are they on lockdown, Mexico?
Well, it's been described as a makeshift lockdown as best.
Meaning?
Oh, there's a lockdown that has been, but people are still moving about and milling around. So.
Oh, the lockdown of the world.
Yes.
Every other part of the world apart from China.
It is summer after all.
Okay. You'd expect to actually see a lot of things happening there. In Kenya then, how many do we have now?
14,168.
68.
Yep. 14,168 with 250 deaths in the country. It was interesting yesterday because then also the announcement 627 people then having been deemed recovered in Kenya. And of those 627 people, 588 then were released to go home and continue with the home-based care because they required that they be for another 14 days at home, making sure that these symptoms did not rear again. So it looked like a very proud moment for the Ministry of Health.
So 588 were in hospitals around the country.
Yes.
And they were now told go.
627 were discharged from hospital. Okay. Of that 627, 588 were told, okay, go home because we still need to, keep an eye on you. But the remaining number, 12 plus 27, 39, then were being, still monitored in a health facility. So,
so are they recovered or are they not?
That's where I'm getting to, because it seemed a little bit confusing to me that if that was a total tally, then 627 actually should be at home under home care. But then the CAS then said that we're still monitoring them in a health facility. It was not very clear about where that health facility was, because if they're discharged, it's discharged to go home, right? But this was different. So 588 home care, home protocol, that seems to be working.
Okay.
Yeah?
What exactly seems to be working in this entire process that you've described?
I'm just
Apart
using,
from being able to send people home, what else is working?
I'm just using the title because
Information.
I don't know what else is under this title. You know how there's title, then subheading, then the rest. The rest I don't know. I just know it's home-based care, the protocols, and they have been released into that scheme.
Okay. Scheme. There is a home-based scheme.
Yeah, that's what they say.
So let's just hope and assume.
And there's a protocol for it.
Yes.
Okay.
So
So
from
far,
yesterday, they're following this.
We've had 14,168 cases and total recovery so far is 6,258.
Yes.
So more than half are still positive.
Yes. Positive and or critical.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. The numbers keep rising. And, of course, the number of male versus female keeps being as clear as day and light. Some 60 more male that are positive than female from yesterday's tests. We'll be taking a look at the newspaper headlines this morning and also looking at other stories. For example, the CS Mutahi Kagwe intends to limit alcohol drinks to homes. There's a draft notice that has been circulating and it says nobody is supposed to take alcoholic drinks in public places, including parks, restaurants, parking lots, bars, or wines and spirits shops.
Okay.
That can form another whole conversation. South Africa says no sale of alcohol anywhere. Kenya is...
You can buy it and
but-
take it home.
Yeah, but
Remember
drink it at home.
There's something that happened in South
The
Africa.
parking at your own home. Hold on, City. Let's take a look at weather first and then continue this conversation. Good morning. It's 6:15.
All right, let's look at what this Wednesday has in store. It's cloudy in Nairobi at 13 degrees. A bit of a shower in certain parts of the city, highs of 23 and lows of 12. Cloudy and overcast in Njeri at 13 degrees. Thunderstorms forecasted for later, highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's mostly cloudy in Nakuru at 14 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 13 with a chance of rain later on. 12 degrees and clear skies in Eldoret this morning. It'll change later, though, to rain showers with highs of 19 and lows of 12. It's mostly cloudy in Kisumu at 19 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18 today. Kakamega is mostly cloudy at 16 degrees, highs of 22 and lows of 15 with showers expected later. We're looking at Malindi being mostly cloudy today, highs of 28 and then becoming overcast later with lows of 24. It's 24 degrees and mostly cloudy in Mombasa. There'll be partly cloudy conditions through most parts of today with highs of 28 and lows of 23. 18 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kampala. Highs of 24 and lows of 18. We're looking at Dar es Salaam, that's partly cloudy this morning at 22 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 22. Looking into Joburg at 6 degrees, clear skies and sunny conditions throughout the day with highs of 19 and lows of 2 degrees today. It's clear skies in Lagos at 24 degrees. It'll change later into rain for most parts of the day with highs of 29 and lows of 23. Let's take a look into New York at 27 degrees. It's still partly cloudy on Tuesday night. Thunderstorms is what they'll wake up to with highs of 33 and lows of 25. 16 degrees and clear skies in London today. Highs of 24 and lows of 14. And finally in Paris, clear skies at 15, highs of 27 and lows of 14.
Let's take a look at what's covered in this report this morning. Big headlines, right?
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Okay.
Cabinet lockdown on the front page of the
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
By a surge in COVID-19 infections and on the back of reports that at least 3 cabinet secretaries have contracted coronavirus.
Mornings done right. 94.4.
And he's to chair the crisis summit to review containment measures on Friday. Total infections rise to 14,168 with 250 deaths. All right, so CSs are barred from touring the country. The president, as part of his efforts to curb the spread of the coronavirus disease, made this announcement yesterday. The travel ban, which will be enforced for 2 weeks, follows reports that at least 3 CSs have contracted COVID-19 and are in self-isolation. According to an official aware of the developments who asked not to be named, the president ordered that the trips be stopped for 14 days as part of efforts to tame the spread of the disease, which is alarming for now. Sources said the directive was informed by the fact that the ministers travel with entourages that include principal secretaries and other top state officials. The tours also draw large crowds that could place citizens at risk. So the government is concerned about the rising community transmission, especially in rural areas. And some of the CSs affected by the travel ban include Fred Matiang'i, Interior, Joe Musheru, ICT, Mutahi Kagwe, Health, Ukuri Yatani, National Treasury, and Aidan Mohammed, Regional Integration. They were supposed to visit Marsabit, Isiola, and Moyale from today to Friday, but that trip has been cancelled. Their colleagues who were in Western Kenya have also been forced to cut short their visits. These were Peter Munya for Agriculture, John Munyes, Mining, James Masharia, Transport, and Eugene Wamalo, Devolution. They were accompanied by Senate Speaker Ken Lusaka and local governors.
So now what's Eugene Omalo going to do, surely?
He's going to sit as opposed to
Zoom.
as opposed to doing a walkabout.
Zoom.
Yes.
How do you do a Zoom public rally?
Why must you have a public rally?
Because that's what he's been doing lately.
As I'm
It has
saying,
been his new JD.
precisely.
So what do you want him to do?
Well, the thing is this, his JD, let's start with his J, okay, before we go to the D, shall we?
Start with a job.
Yes, he is Devolution CS. Is
Yep.
that not so?
Yep.
The rallies we speak of, is there a direct correlation between his J?
He's entrenching devolution.
Okay, we understand that.
Speaking in the counties.
Yes, and also not masking it very effectively,
Yeah.
is the quest for a greater role, political
In
role
the local politics,
in the
huh?
region that he hails,
Hails
from.
from.
Okay? Now that now comes
To the
with
D.
The D, yes. And if it was
are a mess.
in an exam, then we would say indeed he has acquired a D as opposed to an A.
So Eugene Omoro has a big D.
He's got a D there. And I love the picture here we have on page 3 and the shirts they're wearing. Lovely curtain materials.
Oh,
lovely stuff.
You
Yeah.
like?
Very good.
Okay.
The influence. The president is actually influencing this, isn't it?
Yeah, yes.
Good stuff.
Yes. It's working.
Stuff. Good stuff.
When you look at that, you can see, I mean, you started this CT.
You know, this was UCT. You know how they said Columbus discovered Africa, the Americas, leave alone that there were people there before. These people who are wearing these shirts, they don't
This
know
is
that
you.
somebody started it before.
Henry Morton Stanley.
But sometimes I was thinking more of that other guy. What is his name? Livingston.
Livingston, yes, you like that one.
Dr. Livingston.
Yes, I almost called him Shakespeare. Livingston.
It's okay. The way they say we all look alike, even them.
Even them.
Difficult to tell the difference.
It's a good move, I think, by the president. But also, what is the president telling his people?
Things are thick, man.
No, I am listening to the Mwananchi.
Yes.
And these are concerns that they have, and I am going to take their concerns
I'm going to take
seriously.
action.
Yes.
I am going to take action. Remember the headline yesterday was about the way these leaders are basically behaving with impunity, telling people to observe physical distancing and everything, and they are not doing the same.
Essentially, you're bringing this virus
They're
to
almost
people.
climbing on top of each other. And
You're
then
bringing
they're
it to
telling
us. You're
You know,
bringing
the-
it to us.
The thing about, if you want to talk about knowledge and the implicit reaction that people have of it, every time there has been issues of COVID within Parliament, there's pandemonium.
Yep.
So you ask, why? They know wanajijua. They know.
Wanajijua.
These are educated people.
Yeah.
They understand English. They know very well what they should and should not do. They even understand Kiswahili and then their own mother
Even
tongue.
better.
Yeah.
Yes, so it cannot be said they didn't understand what they were told. So the likelihood that they may test positive, that one sends shockwaves.
Okay. So, you know, other than the CSs and the PSs being told not to gallivant all over the country, the government offices have been forced to operate with lean staff after several departments recorded cases of COVID-19. These departments have been forced to reduce the number of employees or temporarily stop operations as the country grapples with the surging cases of COVID-19. Somebody at the ICT Ministry in Telposta Towers died last week, laying bare the gravity of the situation. Telecom's Principal Secretary Esther Koimet said the staff would resume duty on July 27th. That's 5 days from now, if the situation improves. So this is hampering service delivery. When you see now that the state itself is scaling down its operations, we're basically saying that the government is not being able to offer the services to the people directly at the same level that it has been doing. Huduma centers will have to scale down. What does that mean?
I look at it, let me say not I look at it. I want to add to what you're saying by saying this. Remember how sometimes certain positions are more or less forced upon you. I'm using the word forced very deliberately here.
Yeah.
This need to be able to communicate without necessarily meeting face to face, I think it's going to be staring our senior government officials in the face.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to embrace this mode of communicating.
So how shall those services be offered? Anyway, the government will have to think very hard.
Which services, for instance?
What people go to do at Huduma centers. I'm just thinking about a Huduma center, right? So if you're already saying that we want to reduce the number of people who visit government offices, such as those ones, the number of government workers who go to the office, so what are we saying about Huduma centers?
We are saying that you need to strengthen your online services, and you also need to strengthen a system that can allow you to book and can allow you, because if you schedule a meeting, let us say, for instance, Huduma Center allows 50 people a day.
Yep.
You're given your time. Now, it sounds far-fetched because we've never done it. But if you think about it, we're already doing it with passports.
It's the same system that the private sector used with banks.
So here's
whereas
the
a
thing.
banking hall was going to be jam-packed from the hours of 9 o'clock until 3 o'clock. What did they do?
They went online.
They went online
promote
and
a
they
lot more
and then they
of-
introduced a ticketing system whereby, you can only be served in a certain manner. So what did that do? Inadvertently encouraged people to use the external systems, an ATM or online
And people
banking
did.
or whatever, and people did. And they learned. Going to a banking hall, you would think that it was a graveyard.
And
But
also,
services
and
continue.
even if you use those services like the ATM, you will find security personnel who will give you some sanitizer or offer you a place to wash your hands. Meaning, it's, should I say regimented? Yes,
It is. It is indeed. I'm just thinking that in the immediate, right? You have people who, the number of people who wanted government services in February has not reduced.
No.
The number
no.
of people is still the same, right? So let's not even talk about passports, because you could argue, travel
Nobody's
has
going anywhere
reduced.
anyway.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other services at Huduma Center, IDs and the rest. You've lost your ID, you want to replace your ID, and everything else that require physical.
There are many
visits.
services that people actually require.
Yeah.
You're right.
So if you reduce the number of staff at the Huduma Center, and also you restrict the number of people who can come and access, you're creating a backlog.
You are.
What is the government gonna do to deal with this backlog?
Yeah, I mean,
in
even
time?
before this, there was a backlog anyway. I mean, John told us a couple of days ago about how he applied for, what was it, your license or something, about a year ago, and he was called to pick it
The
up.
driving
this year.
license,
the
yes,
driving
the
license, right?
new generation DL.
A year ago, and so even before COVID, there was already a backlog. So without this COVID, there needed to have been something that was introduced to then make the system or the process a little bit more seamless.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a conversation. One thing I do like about this, though, is that even with politicians and these face-to-face meetings that they cannot have, it would be nice because maybe we'll be forcing them to actually get the job done and say that, you know what, people are then going to judge you on your ability to get the job done as opposed to seeing your face and waiting
Yep.
for handouts.
Yep. You don't have to come here, so that you
No, just do your work.
do-
We'll vote for you based on
can
that.
do what you're supposed to do. Okay, let's take another quick break. Take a look at the traffic. At 6:30, this is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Eric Latiff, Nduh Okoh, CT Muga. We are looking at interesting stories that have been covered in today's local dailies. Good morning.
Looking outside of Nairobi, in Limuru, it's at 10 degrees this morning. You thought it was cold yesterday? Well, we have a day for you in store. This means that the fog is extremely low today. So people out and in from the Limuru area have to be very, very careful. Visibility is very poor today. And so that means your fog lights need to be up and try to keep it. Fog lights.
Okay.
Keep it at a minimum in terms of speed, guys, because this is how we get a lot of accidents and we don't need that to happen. Coming back into the city, the outer ring is busy traffic this morning. It's already bumper to bumper, and that started when it was still dark. Oh, okay, it still is, but all right. Kangundo Road, traffic is flowing actually very smoothly today. Coming off Thika Road, it's not yet bumper to bumper, but it's likely to get there in a very short while. We'll be able to look at that for you and let you know where you'll be able to pass or not pass. The service lanes are still available for use right now, as are the bypasses of Eastern and Southern, having not been clogged up just yet. Mombasa Road is seeming to be quite open now. That might change later, as we are well aware. But for now, it can be used without any problems whatsoever. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. It's a Wednesday morning. Things are not so bad right now. We'll take a look in a short while and see how that may have changed.
Okay. No, we're still looking at it. Virus crackdown. Kenya is one of the two countries Temra in the treatment of pneumonia linked to COVID-19 in hospitalized patients. The drug is manufactured by Roche, a multinational healthcare company. The trials were initiated by Genentech, a member of the Roche Group in the US in 2020 May, but have now been expanded to other sites in South Africa, Kenya, Brazil, Mexico, and Peru. 10 patients have already been enrolled at the clinical research unit of the Aga Khan University Hospital in Nairobi. This is interesting. This drug, they say, is expected to work on the body's immune system by inhibiting whatever receptors, interleukin-6, to prevent the pneumonia that affects patients infected with COVID-19. Coronavirus triggers an immune reaction in the lungs, whose cells produce a substance called the interleukin-6, the IL-6, that tries to kill the virus. In the event of an overreaction, this causes acute respiratory disease characterized by difficulties in breathing. So, trials happening here. And there's the other one by the Oxford University that is now being said it's safe for use, according to experts. This one developed by University of Oxford appears safe and triggers an immune response. Trials involving 1,077 people showed the injection led to their bodies making antibodies and T cells that can fight the coronavirus. Although the findings are promising, it's still too soon to know if this is enough to offer protection, and larger trials are still underway.
It'll be interesting to know if that comes through. And I think people are waiting with bated breath to see the results of this.
Actually, what is of interest is that the world over, in fact, what for me rang the alarm bells was, remember there was a little reporting of espionage. It involved the great nation of Russia. And there was mention that there were people who were trying to sort of like steal some people's development in this particular area. Now, by the time it gets to such things getting to the media, what it means is we're actually very near finding that particular silver bullet.
Yep.
And remember, one of the reasons why these processes have been speeded up, it's not as though they started from scratch. No. They started with drugs that had already been determined to be safe. Many of these drugs were used in HIV work and in HIV care and treatment. Most of these drugs which end with ver, okay?
Yep.
They were HIV drugs and they had been known to suppress certain diseases, right? This T cell that you hear of is a type of white blood cell, right? Now, when something you're told it triggers a response, it means that the production of this cell is increased. Now, this cell is known to be, well, white blood cells are protective, but this particular one is known to be, should we say, very effective when it comes to fighting these alien...
it's a vanguard.
Yes, exactly, microorganisms that may visit the body. So, I would actually take this discussion elsewhere and say, we need to start thinking and preparing for life after COVID. Because it isn't very far away, as people imagine, or as was imagined before.
The vaccine.
Yes, it is not far away, because all these tests that you hear, when you hear that we're having the same tests in Peru, where those are what you call multi-site studies. Okay, it means this drug they've determined it is actually safe. Now, okay, fine, safe within a small group. Let's try it across the globe and see how safe it is. Then they'll say, okay, let's try it among larger numbers, because it may be working in small groups. Now, the moment you go through the larger numbers, the next stage is just to license it.
Right.
So we're not far.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Let's hope.
Let's wait and see.
Let's just hope that this one works.
Oh, by the way, Nduh,
Yes?
this wasn't one of those wait and see things. Eh? No. If you understand how these things are developed and the processes that they take, and just the shoving and the movements that are up and about, what we read isn't the whole story. Please bear this in mind. Eh? We read what we are allowed to read. There's a lot happening.
There's a lot more. This is just the top layer of it.
Yes, but the fact that this can come out, it tells you that the advances are really advanced. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Tragic story, unfortunately, that we have to, look at these again.
Yeah.
15-year-old boy is being held for the death of a 9-year-old girl over avocados. A 15-year-old boy is in custody in Murang'a County as the main suspect for the killing of a 9-year-old girl. The minor's remains were discovered buried in a shallow grave 3 days after she went missing. The discovery of Ihiga the discovery at Ihiga Ini village led to the arrest of the Standard 6 pupil, suspected to have been the last person to be seen with her on Saturday at 9 a.m. The body of Purity Njeri, who was in grade 3, had deep injuries on her head, suspected to have been inflicted by a fork djembe. The two had been schoolmates at primary school which shares a name with their village, which is the Ihiga Ine primary school. Jerry's father, Patrick Moirori, says his daughter left home to pick avocado fruits offered by a neighbor. Her body was found 30 meters from the avocado tree in the neighbor's farm and booked at the police patrol base.
This
It
is
is
story
thought in Jerry.
on the Standard.
It's a Standard on page 22. Her body was her body was found 30 meters from the avocado tree, etc. Okay, so it is thought that Njeri and the suspect may have differed over the avocados. Muranga County Police Commissioner Josephat Kinwa said the teenager was arrested following suspicion that he was involved in the killing. The matter is under investigation, while the body was moved to the Muranga District Mortuary for a post-mortem examination. And it's being investigated by Muranga South DCI office as the teenager is held at the Maragua police station.
The same story is covered in The Nation, but the details are slightly different.
Yeah. That's why I started with this one, because the same story is there. Go.
The Nation story, if I remember, I don't have it with me, you can just check.
Yeah.
So the Nation story says that this boy and the girl were at the girl's farm and they were harvesting avocados, just the two of them. Then the boy rushes home and to the girl's home and tells the parents, you know what, I'm the one who's just come up with the avocados. I don't know where the girl went to. I haven't seen her. So immediately they start looking there. Folks start looking for the girl because this is a young girl, 9 years old. The father goes to the farm and finds freshly dug up space, loose ground, digs it up, finds the girl wrapped in a gunny bag, and she has no visible marks apart from what looks like strangulation on the neck. Post-mortem shows that the death was caused by manual strangulation. So the issue of a fork djembe and head injuries
So now
is not in that other account. The issue of being found 3 days later is also not in the other account, because the Nation account says that this boy came to the home at about 9 o'clock and they found this girl before 11.
What is the same in both of these stories is that this young boy is then the major suspect,
and is in police custody.
And is in police custody over this girl's. About 2 weeks ago, we saw a story that was more or less the same, where it could have been an accident and something happened with with the boy and the girl who were
the boys
tending
and the
sheep,
sisters,
I believe, right? So same kind of story, where you're not really sure what happened. Could have been a mistake. Something could have gone wrong.
Yep.
But again, leading to the thought that more and more of these are happening. And,
more and more of these are being recorded.
More of these are being recorded. If they're being recorded, then they're happening. But I mean, it's that if something went wrong, if there was an argument, it ended in death. If there was an argument.
What is consistent in all these stories, even the ones in the past, is the violence and the manner in which this violence is perpetrated. You have to ask, for someone to use the amount of force that would bring about death, what state of mind was this person in? Because children play around, they get angry, they even fight. You never hear of death. You never even hear of serious injuries.
No.
So what is it? It's disturbing.
I have conflicting thoughts about this story. One of them is just I'm thinking it's a 15-year-old and a 9-year-old. These are children. So they are picking avocados. These are children. Then whatever happens, whatever scuffle ensues, and one puts the other one on the ground and maybe holds their neck. Can we say that really would know, a 15-year-old would know that this girl is now dying?
No. Would he even know the extent of his strength? No.
No, he wouldn't.
Would he know when he's actually causing damage to the point of probably blocking her breathing completely? The answer is no.
No. So I'm thinking, to some extent, it's possible that
The intent was not to kill.
the boy was just, doing that, and maybe he's
Teaching
angry
her lesson
or,
as he thought.
teaching her a lesson and pushing it as far
But
as
then the
possible.
question one does is, why strangle her? Why not slap her? If that is, because a slap is often considered the manner in which people administer lessons.
Yeah, but children do all these things all the time. We push each
Yes.
other, you hit each other with
They do,
objects,
they
you
do,
will
they do.
strangle one
Even throw
another.
stones.
Yeah, because you like strangling, you're in the boy's mind, it could be wrestling.
In the boy's mind, it could be wrestling. Yes. In the boy's mind, it could be to shut her up.
Yeah. Or any of those things.
What doesn't seem clear, it isn't as though this boy intended to kill the girl. No. Because if we claim that is the intention, then we have to ask some very profound questions, and it starts with why.
Yeah. And that'd be history, and it would have been noticed by even the adults.
That this guy behaves funnily.
Yeah.
Towards her.
Yeah.
No, just generally.
Yeah.
Remember, there are children who parents don't allow other children to play with.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say, no, not that one. And why? Because the behavior has been observed, and they said, this child,
Yeah. And also then the next thing is the boy brings the avocados home and says, I haven't found the other one. So what would you explain how would you explain that situation? Probably panic, you realize, oh my God, she's dead. So
she's not moving.
Yeah, she's not moving. So the next thing that you think of is what happens, let me hide her.
You know the...
How do I hide her? Let me just dig up, let me wrap her, let me just hide her there and go home and claim. In his mind, he assumes that just by going and saying, I haven't seen her.
It absolves you of any
Yeah.
kind of guilt, right? Unfortunately.
It's
It's
and the reason why I was saying that this one is getting me worried is I'm thinking, what kind of process is this boy gonna go through? Already the boy is in police station, right? Is in police custody. Everybody is looking at this boy. The cops are saying, so we're gonna investigating why this boy killed this girl. He's the prime suspect in this one. So already the system is treating this kid as a serious
Pariah.
criminal.
already.
Is this boy ever gonna get rehabilitated? Is he ever gonna get through this, whatever happened?
Eric,
Can we prove that he did it actually willingly?
Eric,
What
let's
if he
start with the
didn't?
question. Do we actually honestly, genuinely have a system that seeks to rehabilitate minors?
No.
If we start with that question, then the rest is easy to answer. No, because the juvenile facilities that we call them, those are likely to inculcate in you habits and norms that, and I'm talking about the vile variety, that you previously did not even know existed. So,
It's a very, very, very sad story.
It is.
Very sad story. Someone is telling me there's also a similar story, but a brief one, not sure which page of the Standard, where a boy, 25 years old boy, killed his cousin by strangling in Homa Bay. Well, somewhere in the Standard as well. So let's also look for that and see it. As in the meantime, let's take a quick break. It's 13 minutes to 7 o'clock. In the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation in the room is CT Muga, Nduh Okoh, and Eric Latiff. We are looking at stories that have been covered in the dailies today. Good morning. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back.
classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 10 minutes to 7 o'clock. It's the situation in Kenya's biggest conversation. So that other story is also on the same page of the Standard, right? Page
It is
22.
So a man who's 25 years old rather, killed his grade 4 cousin.
Allegedly.
Sorry? Homa Bay is in shock. A village, rather, in Homa Bay is in shock after a grade 4 boy was killed by his 25-year-old cousin in cold blood. Peter Osala was killed at Kokothendira village, Garading sublocation in Diwa sub-county on Sunday. It was reported that the minor was missing or went missing after being lured by the suspect that he was going to buy him a pair of shoes. According to Dalmas Osalo, father to the deceased, the suspect killed the victim by hitting him with a blunt object. After committing the act, the suspect presented himself at the Ndiwa police station. Ndiwa Sub-County Police Commander Robert Aboki said the suspect will be arraigned once investigations are over. So it doesn't give details as to what happened, but I mean, he lured him that he was going to buy him a pair of shoes, and then they find their son dead.
Okay, that's why I was throwing in the word allegedly, because this story seems to have concluded that this is what happened. Well, so the man took himself to the police station.
Yes, he did.
And what did he say? I have killed?
Well, he presented himself at the police station, and that is as much as is reported.
Because the rest now is coming from the victim's father.
Yes.
Okay.
So I mean, there's a lot that could be assumed by virtue of the fact that he took himself to the police station, and you know the details of their family relationships or other things that may have been going on at the time are not reported.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot is then left to assumption.
A lot. Another story. Senators fail to agree on revenue sharing formula. Surprise, surprise. Talks to try and reach a compromise on a disputed revenue sharing formula flopped yesterday, prompting postponement of a vote in the Senate. The last-ditch efforts to strike a deal on the contentious third-generation formula of revenue sharing among counties hit a snag, prompting Speaker Ken Lusaka to once again defer the crucial vote that seeks to avert a looming financial crisis in the counties. The development sent President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration, which backs a new formula that puts premium on each county's population, back to the drawing board. It further delays the passage of the County Allocation of Revenue Act 2020, which in effect means that counties have absolutely nowhere to get money from. They have no way of getting money from the national government. A share of the 316 billion shillings that should be going to them. This one will take... but a solution will be found. It's good that they keep doing this. The point of the matter is that they're discussing. They still keep disagreeing. Senators, those whose counties were set to lose, are saying no. They just want to say, why don't we just go back to
way it used to be? And it
Formula 2, we say Formula 2 becomes Formula 3. And then those that were not getting, those that were, of course, set to gain are thinking,
finally, I was going to...
But why?
Indeed, the terming and the naming of this process and branding the process as one that includes people, losers and gainers, if I may use the term, doesn't help.
It really doesn't. Because it's not a competition.
But it's been made a competition.
It's been made one.
And it is now, even the discussions around it have become a competition. If you listened when the senator from Kitui, he actually promoted this idea very, very strongly and said, we cannot afford to lose. And I'm thinking, you didn't have the money. It's actually not your money per se.
No, it's not your money. Not even per se.
No. Given that there's monies that are supposed to be allocated to the counties, you could argue that legally you have a right to expect it. Okay? But also, there is a legal requirement that is actually a stipulation that is being followed. It's being reviewed. Now, the reviewing process, if you think about it just logically, and you remove the gains and the losses, it even makes sense. If you got money for the last 5 years because it was deemed that you were not as developed as other places, and you're supposed to use this, if I may use the term again, extra money to catch up. The fact that you didn't catch up doesn't mean you're not given the money. You were given the money.
And it also doesn't mean that now you're still receiving some money. You can still use that money to catch up.
You can.
I mean, it's not like you're going to receive zero.
No. What again it does is what COVID has done to very many other government functions, shown the underbelly. When you raise the question of, can we just talk about what has been done with what has been received? Man, that
nobody wants to answer.
It's
like round and round the rugged rock. All, I mean, nobody wants to answer. Actually, you know what?
No.
Very few want to answer.
It works. It doesn't work.
No.
Yes,
what have you done with what you've been given? 1 shilling, what did it do? The problem is that even for those who may have done something with this amount, it then casts, a shadow of doubt on them, So you should be able to account for just the same thing. The one that they gave you, what did you do with it? The 5 talents, as it were?
No, that one they don't want to be asked.
They don't want to be asked.
We want to talk about the losses.
It's very annoying. Let's talk about the one that you didn't give me before you talk about the one that you actually did give me and what I was able to do with it.
And you know what is of interest? This one that you're talking about, which you're expecting, you didn't have it. You haven't received it. You don't have it. Okay? But you already planned for it.
For something
you've
that you've
budgeted
not
for it. And that's why you're seeing the losses. Because these things that you had planned for this money aren't now going to work, is it?
It's going to be a tad difficult.
All right.
It's going to be a tough one. We'll have more of these conversations in the next hours. Also, there's this one, which you can tease. Maybe we'll be discussing it in the 9 o'clock. Kagwe intends to limit alcohol drinks to homes. So the CS for Health has published some draft regulations that are seeking to limit consumption of alcohol only to within your home.
Wait and see
confined
if it's not challenged in court.
Home.
It will be challenged in court. People will have house parties. Just wait. Anyway, you said 9 o'clock.
Remember, presidential directives have been challenged in court. And have been set aside until it is heard. Kagwe can do, he's trying
But
his
the first
best.
time it was not challenged. Why would they challenge it now?
Well, the thing is,
Remember
this.
when restaurants were not allowed to have seating passengers?
No,
not
at that
passengers, but
particular
clientele.
time, we were docile because we had known this thing
We were-
can kill
we were
you at
scared.
short notice.
Now,
Now, people have tasted the forbidden fruit.
Bas.
and
This
it's
one,
very
people are not
sweet.
going to accept.
This one. Well, I'm
very
just
sweet.
wait and see if this thing doesn't go to court.
I want to go to a restaurant and I want to have my drink.
Yes. And you are now
And you're
interfering
now
with my,
infringing on my rights.
Yep.
To what? To consume what I want.
Yes.
Do what I please
Hey,
when I want.
hey.
So long as I'm the curfew,
I'm
I
not breaking
understand.
the law.
And I'm maintaining social
Social
distance.
Why
yes.
can't I drink?
Yes.
I mean,
My
In the
goodness.
UK, Eric, what they did, they guaranteed that everyone who went to a bar registered. Roll call. Unaandika jina.
I'm here.
Yeah, not only you're here,
Yeah.
here, email address, phone number, where you stay.
In South Africa, they ensured that no alcohol is going to be sold anywhere.
I would like to see how that one is actually put into action.
Well, people started now making their own alcohol.
Brew
Pineapples
mulled
became
grape
serious. Coming to the top of the hour, City Muga, today's proverb. No, you'll actually repeat that proverb as we begin the next hour, right?
Okay.
As we begin the next hour, or we'll also be live on KTN Home. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. In the next hour, we'll be talking about data and consumption. You know now you can actually access YouTube for as low as 10 bob per day
something like that.
on Safaricom. So we'll be asking Safaricom what exactly they mean by that. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Visibility on the Nairobi-Nakuru highway today is very, very poor, and all the lights are on. Everybody who is in that area is moving at a snail's pace. We need to also be very careful if you're using that particular road or if you're in that general area, because again, the fog is very, very low, right at your nose, as it were. All right, let's look at other parts of the city now. There is also poor visibility right around Limuru Road. Let's look at Limuru Road now, coming into the city from the village market and then past Aga Khan into the city centre, or then using Forest Road to get towards Westlands. You should be fine. It's building up right around there. Coming in from Kitengele Athi River, joining Mombasa Road, you're going to get stuck right around Cabanas just a little bit, but it will not be too terrible then as you're trying to get into the CBD via the Nyayo Stadium roundabout onto Uhuru Highway there. So traffic is building up between all along Uhuru Highway, between Nyayo Stadium and Westlands. Coming out of Westlands, however, past the 87 and then towards the Westlands roundabout and then out towards University Corner. You should be fine though. So traffic hasn't built up to places where you're going to need some patience, but it's oncoming. Spice of MKE, let us know what you see. Want to keep it moving. It's Wednesday. Hope it doesn't get too crazy.
A very good morning to you, and how are you doing? This is Kenya's biggest conversation in Malindi, 97.7. In Njeri, 90.9. Eldoret, 96.7. Nakuru, 96.0. Someone was asking about what? Narok. 96.0 frequency. You'll still be able to catch it in Narok. 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, and 94.4 in Nairobi. We live stream the show as well on www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as Spice FM KE on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We're also live for the next 2 hours on KTN Home. And good morning to our audience on KTN Home. Well, in the situation room for this hour, let's talk about data and affordability of data. You know, a couple of years ago when we started seeing other entrants, well, the third mobile operator in the country, that was U-Mobile, ESA Telecom, right? I remember the conversation shifting to, within a few years' time, the competition in this industry is not going to be about airtime and calling. It's going to move into data. And then, it will be a debate between the CEOs of the three mobile companies on what exactly would this look like. I mean, what are we talking about? That's the same time as well when we were seeing the government working so hard at bringing better connectivity for data, allowing undersea fiber cables to land at the coast. We had CCOM, we had the teams and others landing at the coast, and then CS for communication, Mutahi Kagwe, and the PS, Bitange Nemo, saying, you know what, now the issue about data and content is what's going to be the big thing. So content, for very many people, is how you're consuming the information. YouTube, one of the platforms where Kenyans have really, gone into YouTube. Many, starting with just musicians. Musicians who were selling CDs and tapes now started producing videos.
Right.
And initially they were selling VCDs. And then now they started uploading their videos on YouTube. And nowadays, big people like Sauti Sol, when they want to release that, dropping a new single or dropping a new album, it goes first on YouTube, and you catch it on YouTube, and then you catch it elsewhere. So the whole issue of how you can access this content, videos, streams, and such, is big. Safaricom has now entered into a deal with Google, where they have a package, a bundle that specifically gives you access to YouTube, 10 shillings a day, consume as much as you want. You can leave it playing and come back, and your 10 bob is still going to be 10 bob. I mean, well, it's not going to be 10 bob.
For 24 hours.
For 24 hours, it's going to be there. So let's try and understand what this is all about, all right? Because when this giant mobile operator goes into such kind of deals, there must be something that they're looking at. They must have a lot of data that they know about consumption of Kenyans and how they're consuming content on YouTube and all that. So let's talk to the senior manager in charge of mobile data at Safaricom. His name is Martin Mabuya. Martin, good morning.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing today?
I am very well, thank you. And my co-hosts are very good as well, as I see them.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Good morning, Martin.
Morning. How are you doing?
Very well.
Yeah.
Putting you right there on the spot, Martin. So,
Yeah.
this tell us about this deal that you struck with Google for access to YouTube.
Well, actually, what we've done with our good friends at Google is that we put together a package for access to YouTube, right? Yeah, so we have a YouTube exclusive bundle where for 2 shillings daily you're able to get access to YouTube. And just slightly to correct you, it's not necessarily unlimited, right? Because you consider there is other factors like network capacity and such like things.
Okay.
So it's about 80 MB of specific for YouTube. And if you're doing that on standard definition, if you are running YouTube for a continuous period of time, you'll probably be able to have about 30 minutes there of access, all right? But the reason why we put this at YouTube is because we are trying to make this content relevant, especially to people who have never had use for internet before. Now, think about it from this perspective. A person who's an internet newbie is a person who necessarily doesn't have a reason to want to go on the internet, all right? So the only thing that they can actually consider internet is their favorite content, for instance. And if they're looking for gospel music, if they're looking for comedy, if they're looking for news, for them, that is the end game for them. All right. The person who's been a digital native knows exactly what they go to do on the internet. But this, for us, we're considering it as a gateway, especially as we try to liberate internet for each and every other Kenyan from every walk of life. Yeah, so that's the whole idea. The other package is that for people who are internet savvy can actually be able to use. But the reason for this, our biggest motivation, or probably people out of country, people who've never had use for data, And that is the reason why we are trying to open that space up.
Maybe the younger audience as well.
Well, yeah. So if you look at the younger audience, especially urban, all right, when you look at those guys, if you have a family, for instance, Eric, I'd ask you what they call internet in the house. They probably don't even call it internet; they call it Wi-Fi.
Yep.
Those guys are a different ballgame, to be honest. And for
But
them,
when they're out of the house,
yeah,
they talk about data bundles.
Yeah, exactly my point. Yeah. So for them, we actually have a package. We have other packages for people who are very intense users. But as you said, this also can actually be very useful for someone who wants to use YouTube when they're out of the house as well.
Martin, the timing of this doesn't go unnoticed. I reckon that we have more people at home now, and you have more people who have needs when it comes to how they want to interact, because we know that YouTube, having been used for entertainment as well as information, does the timing of all of this play a role in when you chose to roll this out with all that's going now with COVID-19?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing I would like to point out over here is the outcome of what people are using YouTube for, to be honest. And there's a story I actually was telling one of my friends about one time we went for a market visit, because we constantly want to see what the consumer is doing. So this guy is actually a mechanic on Grogon, all right? And if you take whichever car you have to this guy, he will never tell you he doesn't fix that car. Okay. So the guy, you'll bring him a 2018 model Jeep, for instance. I can tell you for free that guy has never been to a class to be taught how to fix that car.
Yeah.
Okay. But what the guy will tell you is like, hey, watch hapo gari mkubwa tutatengeneza. The guy will go at the back of the shed over there. He'll go to YouTube and he will go and just query on how to fix the radiator or whatever of car this is. For sure, that information exists.
Okay.
Somewhere. All right. And by the time you go and come back, that guy will have fixed your car. The moral of this story is that at this particular point in time, any information you are looking for, you probably find it. So, and what is actually happening in this period of time where access to information is relatively limited, in that movement, first of all, is limited, interactions are limited, your kids are not going to school. So essentially, this becomes the one place where you can be able to get most of the information you want. So the use has suddenly evolved from just purely entertainment to knowledge, and you can also be able to learn a new skill in this space. And you are right. It has come in very handy, especially in this COVID time, because people are able to then access the information they would necessarily not be looking for. But on YouTube. And you can think about it, there is more time than you would have before, so you need to fill that time. Number two, you have kids that probably need to be homeschooled for some reason, and you need to get that information. So yeah, you're right. The timing, we were not really looking at this for timing. It just came in as a coincidence, and we can say that has been very useful to the end user at this point.
Right.
If I may ask, if I'm to believe media reports from last year, more so it picked up last year and this year, Google has been accused internationally of mining and harvesting data illegally, and they've been taken to court over these things. How does that play? Safaricom partnering with a search engine giant who have actually been taken to court on something very serious as invading people's privacy, getting information that they shouldn't be getting and using it.
Well, in all honesty, I cannot actually be able to comment on behalf of Google. And obviously,
I'm actually asking on behalf of Safaricom. Essentially, if we were to believe what we've been reading, then we are saying that Safaricom is getting in bed with a rogue search engine company.
So I could not actually call Google a rogue search engine company. Google is actually a very reputable global business, and that's why I was saying probably if there are those kind of allegations, probably they'd be best placed to address them. But from where we sit as guys at Safaricom, we have very stringent data control information process within our business. And we do not give anyone access, be it a partner, be it whoever. We do not give access to people's personal data. That one is a guarantee I can give, that we do not expose our customers' data at any conditions. So anything probably that is around the Google space, I think they probably would be best to address that. But I can give you a guarantee that.
How do you support this guarantee, Martin? I mean, I've heard you say it. You're telling me it's a guarantee. Is it written somewhere? Is it something that I can get hold of and take home and keep in a safe?
Well, we actually are a regulated business by the government, all right? And there are certain standards that you have to operate by, all right? And if we do not abide by those standards, we are actually at liability by the government and other regulators for us to be able to abide by those. And that's the reason why I can comfortably say that we do not risk our customers' information.
Martin, I'm going to go back to the patterns that we are seeing that people are operating within, especially during COVID times, because those are the times that we find ourselves in now. What is the shift that you've seen in the consumption of data pre-COVID, we can say BC, before COVID, even 3 months before March, and how has that changed then during the time where people needed to be in contact or in touch with others and they couldn't do it physically?
Well, what I can say is immediately we got into the COVID space, there was obviously an unexpected rise in the demand for data. And like I mentioned, you realize that at that point, everyone was home. All right? All of us guys who go to an office to work suddenly had to figure out how to work without going to that office. Right. So essentially, there was that increased demand for the use of data. But obviously, as the economy starts opening up and things continue loosening up, we are seeing some considerable shift back to people's normal behavior, right? Because there are different data usage patterns that you see. For instance, you will see early morning, late evenings, there is considerable use of data. During the day, that probably goes down because people are very busy with nation building activities. And you can now realize that at this COVID time, these daytime trends I was telling you, if people go to do up and about their business, that was considerably controlled, or it was considerably reduced. And when people have time in their hand, obviously, nowadays internet has become a default way of people passing time. So, but as the economy opens up, then obviously that is going down, but not back to probably the pre-COVID, what you call BC or before COVID. But essentially, what that means is that our reality of how we live our lives is considerably shifting right now, okay? Because COVID has really opened a different way of life that we were not used to before. Most of them are still working from their houses anyway, so they are not as much as working from the offices as they used to. All right, the kids that used to be at school during the day are not; they are still at home. And obviously, you'll start seeing some trends of some patterns changing. You do not want to go to the bank because it's not necessarily very safe, so you probably opt to do it online. You would not want to go buy something you want to go buy physically. You want it delivered to your house. So those trends are probably going to stick for a period of time, because anything of this magnitude always leaves a change in behavior.
Still talking about that data then.
Yeah.
Out of the many millions of subscribers that you have at Safaricom, how many are data subscribers?
Well, I could actually not be able to.
And this is mobile, not the home connection.
Yeah, so I think in Kenya you'd actually look at about the 20 million space combined on how customers use data, but and that is based on the CA information that was released last quarter. So that is public information that anyone can access. So that's around the number. But what that means is that we still have some amount of distance to go in terms of covering the rest of the population, and the challenge for that actually is brought by access to smartphones. All right. Yeah, so because smartphones are not necessarily the cheapest things in the market, and you can then be witness to that, all right? So most of the rural populations that cannot actually be able to access that smartphone are the batch that is left out of what I'd call the digital divide. But as we speak right now, Eric, we have something that we are working around to bring out to the market very soon, and our CEO Peter during our annual end of year report, you remember he mentioned that you are going to bring accessibility for smartphones. So what you're doing is that you are going to bring access to smartphone where you could actually be able to pay on a day-to-day, something as 20 shillings. All right. So what we're trying to do with that is to give access to smartphones, because data, just for information, it has three legs. All right. Number one, you need to have a proper device for you to use it, a phone, a smartphone, for
Yep.
instance. Okay. Number 2, you need to have a proper network. Okay. Number 3, you need to have the ability to use that internet. So if any one of those is missing, then internet becomes a mirage of sorts, right? So if I have one of those Mulimkamwigi phones, I might be in the middle of CBD where the network is probably the best. You still won't use the internet, right?
You won't have access to it. So my
You
question
might have
then,
the
actually, now that you've said that, my question was specifically to Safaricom. The number of subscribers that you have, how many have access to data? How many are subscribing to data, like buying data bundles?
Yeah. Well, like I said, we have around 20 million customers who use data, not necessarily on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, like I mentioned, that information is publicly out there. So we have a considerable amount of penetration of data customers in the country.
And how much? What's the average data consumption per day?
So the average consumption of data is varied based on people's different uses for data. But most of our customers, you realize, will probably be using very minimal things like WhatsApp and everything. Very few people are heavy users of data. And that is why we are trying to open that space into making customers have accessibility to data. Because at the end of the day, let's just be honest, when you think about internet is not what you would call a basic need, all right? So where you have food, shelter, and clothing, and those kind of things that are top. So essentially that means that what the customer is willing to spare is probably what they will spend on data. So it's apart from people who have to work or live through the internet, the rest of the people is probably one of those things they use because they have to. So I cannot with certainty tell you it is 10, 15, 20, but it's not. If you look at the law of averages, is the most people use, but there's a very small batch of people are the one who drive the biggest volumes.
Okay. Because where I was heading with that is there have been very many complaints. If you go to social media, you'll find complaints all the time. There are memes that are produced on how Safaricom chews data. So people complain that, bought data, you do not know exactly what kind of, the number of units that you bought. And then you're also not monitoring your usage. But within a short time, it's gone.
Well, Eric, I think just to just put your mind at peace in that conversation, I think we've been hearing the same from our customers as well, and we operate in the kind of environment where we need the customers to have confidence in how we do business. All right. So at the moment, we're actually rolling out a feasibility tool where you can actually be able to see that the 2 MBs that I used, they went to Facebook. The 3 MBs went to YouTube, and you can see when you used it. Because I think that the biggest problem that you always have most of the time is when someone asks you, what happened to this, and you are not giving them a very good explanation. That is what I mean. All right. So what we're doing right now is to give the customer 100% visibility so that the customer can say, I bought this much, I was able to use this on YouTube, I use this on Facebook, I use this here at this time, and this is what is remaining. Because the day you clear that up, then the customer doesn't have a problem. Because if it was on YouTube, I know I was on YouTube. Right? And I can actually see that within that duration of time, this is how much I used. I think that is the first step of what it is that we are trying to do. The second thing is that as we continue going ahead, you can realize that we're starting to give a lot more and more and more generous offers for bundles. Because the moment you have something small like 5-10 MBs, you will realize how it's moving. But if you have lots of it, then obviously it puts your mind at peace. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do. First of all, you're very clear to see where your data went. And number 2, we are trying to bring this worry-free experience around data where you have enough of it for you to be able to focus on exactly what it is that you want to do over a certain period of time and move on.
All right, so Martin.
So we've had the customers.
Okay, so quite a number of factors play here, whether you look at sustainability, whether you look at affordability, across board. And so let's say that we are entering into a season whereby the economy or businesses and students, even education, have to rely on data, and it's going to be quite intensive data driven economy is probably one of the things that we're going to be looking at in the near future, if not now already. Can we say that in terms of the affordability and sustainability, it's something that we can look at to the private sector with companies such as yourselves to be able to provide for the economy? Because government is not going to be able to do that single-handedly from what we see right now. And with the promise already from companies like yourselves, is it possible to sustain an intensive data-driven economy?
Well, I can actually say yes, because where we are actually heading right now, we are actually going into an internet-driven or database-based economy. That's the truth, all right? And we guys as Safaricom, we do not live in a bubble. We live in the reality of our customers' reality, okay? Because if I woke up today and we price data in a place where it's not reachable to the average customer, then we have no business in that business. All right. So as the reality of these customers changes, we change with it. If you look at the moment right now, we actually have for education, for instance, we have a package that we give even 100 MBs free for customers to be able to get the curriculum guys. They have a syndicated syllabus. We offer that online up to 100 MBs for free for customers. So we are not ignorant to where the customer is today. And as we progress as that reality changes, we actually change with that. If you look at the perspective where we've even been giving our university students a certain a bundle for a very small amount of money for like 10 GBs for them to be able to do their studies.
Yeah.
So we actually live in the reality of the customer's reality because we do the business with the customer anyway. And as these things continue shifting, like for instance, if you look at our fixed customers who are on home fiber, for instance, when the COVID situation started, we actually doubled the speed. For the same amount of money you're paying for your fiber, we doubled the speed, all right? And we actually live in that constant evaluation of where the customer is for us to be able to operate. And as we continue moving into that digital space, then we have to be real to the customers, and we have to live in their reality. So as these situations change, you can rest assured that we will be able to play in the same space as the customer, for sure.
Martin, we still have a couple of questions to ask you. We'd like you to stay on the line.
Sure.
As we take a quick break, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We have on the line Martin Mabuya. He is a senior manager for mobile data, Safaricom PLC. We are discussing data consumption. Safaricom has rolled out this new partnership with Google where you can get a data bundle that specifically gives you access to YouTube content. And what Martin is saying is that this is very good, especially for people who are new entrants and new users of internet. And you'll be able to get access to YouTube. You'll be able to just buy this. How much again is it, Martin? Is it 2 shillings a day?
10 shillings.
10 shillings. You had said 2
Yeah,
at some point. I was so happy.
Yeah, all right.
10 bob per day, and you get to access Safaricom. You get to access YouTube on your Safaricom mobile device. You can still buy other data bundles as well for the other packages. We'll be asking about all those other users of internet and how they're benefiting from Safaricom. Good morning. 25 minutes past 7 o'clock. It's a Situation Room on Spice FM and KTN Home. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, what do the skies look like now? It's warmed up just a little bit in Nairobi, but not too much. Skies have lifted just a tad. Mostly cloudy conditions at 14 degrees, likely to carry the day with highs of 23 and lows of 12. Looking into Njeri, we're at 13 degrees. It'll be mostly cloudy today, highs of 21 and lows of 13, with rain showers forecasted for later. 14 degrees and mostly cloudy in Nakuru. It's going to be wet afternoon there as well, with highs of 21 and lows of 13. 12 degrees in Eldoret and mostly cloudy. Also promising rain later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. Kisumu today will be mostly cloudy for most parts of the day, looking at currently 20 degrees, highs of 26 and lows of 18. In Kakamega, it's mostly cloudy at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 15 with showers expected in the afternoon. In the coastal town, starting with Malindi at 25 degrees, we'll see showers beckoning quite soon, actually, highs of 28 and lows of 24. Mostly cloudy conditions in Mombasa. It'll also be rainy this morning, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Let's look out of Kenya now into Kampala, where at 18 degrees is mostly cloudy. That'll be the state for most parts of the day, with highs of 24 and lows of 17. Looking into Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where it's partly cloudy and actually quite foggy. This morning at 23, we'll see highs of 30 and lows of 22. All right, in Joburg, it's warmed up just a tad to 6 degrees. We'll see highs of 19 and come down to a chilly low of 2 today, but with sunny conditions for most parts of the afternoon. For now, we'll wrap things up in Lagos, where clear skies at 24 degrees. Likely to be a rainy morning, mid-morning, highs of 29 and lows of 23. All right, what has changed? Thika Road is actually quite busy now. We have traffic backed up all the way to Safari Park Hotel. This is inbound to the CBD. It's going to take you some time. The service lanes, however, are up, and it shouldn't be too much of a problem to get out there. The eastern and southern bypasses are open for use, and we don't have much of an issue there either. Let's look at Waiyaki Way, getting into the CBD through Westlands Roundabout. Getting past the Red Hill bypass, that can be used as an option, so it's not too crazy. The interchange on Gong Road at Prestige has been put there to ease traffic, and it's actually helping this morning, so it's not too crazy. We're gonna look now outside of Nairobi, the Nairobi-Nakuru Highway, especially from Limuru outbound. The fog is very, very heavy this morning, and also now starting with light rains, so we need to be very careful. For those of us that are applying that route, please do take it easy. Anything that you do see, let us know. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. We want to arrive alive this morning, even while we're in a hurry.
Where are you this morning, wherever you are? You can catch us on Spice FM. Malindi 97.7, Njeri 90.9, 96.7, in Nakuru 96.4, Kisumu 102.5, Mombasa 87.9, Nairobi 94.4. The motors are live streaming www.spicefm.co.ke on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Spice of MKE.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
At Safaricom PLC, Martin Mabuya, Senior Manager for Mobile Data. He's on the line with us. We've been discussing this. They rolled out a new partnership with Google where for only 10 shillings a day, you get to access YouTube content. But this is not unlimited, Martin, is it?
It's not. I mentioned that the 10 bob is actually up to 80 MBs of YouTube. But then again, when you think about it, when you look at what it is that we package our data bundles, that's probably like 4 times what you would ordinarily get a data bundle for.
Okay. So for this person that you're targeting, let's say the person who's a new entrant into using internet on the phone, how many hours of continuous consumption are they likely to enjoy from this data bundle?
So remember again, like I told you, this guy is a zero user. They have no idea to start with. So we actually, what we practice, like I mentioned to you, from standard definition, and that is what most of the phones can support in that market segment, you can easily be able to do about half an hour of non-stop streaming. Yeah?
Okay.
But then again, these things are always dependent on factors like the network quality, the device you're using. So the thing about data is that you're not able to say the phone that Eric has and the phone that my mother have, they use the data in the same way, all right? Because they have different resolutions, they have different levels of processors and such like this. But from a standard definition perspective, you should be able to give you 30 minutes of non-stop. But even if you decide to do it 10 minutes here, another 5 there, you'll still be able to get up to the end of your bundle.
So what I'm thinking of is very many people are now seeking to consume church services on their mobile devices. And when I heard about this package, I thought, oh, okay, so here's a solution.
Yeah.
People don't need to queue up to go to church. Now with in this COVID times, they can consume church services on YouTube if the church is streaming on YouTube, and they can actually access this. But you're saying that there are some limitations. I wouldn't be able just to sit down with my high-end 4G phone and enjoy longer full services. For example, my pastor decided that today they're going to do 4 hours of service.
Well, the thing is, Eric, we have a variety of offerings that we have, and I remember when we started this COVID space where we had those kind of scenarios where people couldn't physically go to church anymore. There was a lot of other things that, forget about even church, there were guys who were doing concerts online and that kind of stuff. So we actually put out bundles that were relevant for that. For instance, we've always had a plan called Giga, where you're actually able to get a GB of data for 100 bob every day. It's always been there, and it's probably one of the most popular data bundles we have out there today. We also have, you can actually get the same 20 bob. You can actually be able to get about 200 MB, which is about, it will take you for about an hour and a half, which is actually about the length of a chat service anyway. So we were actually very considerate. It's not the only plan we have out there. But the reason why we are talking about the 10 bob is because of the objective of us trying to democratize this space to people who've never had a reason to use it, to want to use it. But for you, if you want to do those 4 hours, you want to stream a concert and stuff like that, we have plans that you can actually be able to use to do that.
All right, Martin. We're still, of course, looking at data, and we see that the world over, PPPs seem to work, public-private partnerships, and in times where governments may struggle or may need adequate or may need input from the private sector where things seem to be working. Now, with data and how you have seen that it can revolutionize thinking or even action anywhere, would you say that Safaricom then is placed to be able to advise or work with government across sector? Because we look at where there are struggles, health, education, across board, whereby data would be called upon to help some of the processes. Is Safaricom placed to be able to help out, to form some of these PPPs with government and see that some of these things are rolled out and working seamlessly?
Well, I think we have always done that. It's not that it's something we're going to start. We've always done that, all right? If you think about it at this particular COVID time, right, Safaricom is actually working with government to make sure that customers are transacting, especially in M-Pesa, for less than 1,000 is free. But that's something we've actually put together alongside government because we are addressing a reality of the customer right now and where we are in consideration that we are going to get a hit from an economic perspective. That is one of the partnerships. A while back, we also partnered with the National Police Services where we're actually helping in terms of making sure that we have safe communities, in terms of the surveillance cameras that were out on the roads and all that stuff. So Safaricom is always open to partner with government when that comes to it, even from our foundation perspective.
I'm even going a little bit deeper than that, and I'm saying look at the challenges that are being faced. As an example, look at the challenges that are being faced in the education sector today, and this is across board, from kindergarten up until university, right? And at the very center of all of this could be a data solution whereby teaching cannot take place right now remotely because of inaccessibility to certain things. Could there be an advisory role or an input role here that could be played to help out?
A direct example here, Martin, Kenyatta University has even placed adverts in their dailies today saying that all students, it's mandatory for all students in all modes of study who do not own laptops to ensure that they acquire them for online learning, because they are now going to offer blended learning, face-to-face and online mode of learning and teaching.
Yeah.
So you're talking about all the students at KU who now are being told by the university, you know what, you must have a laptop. That means you must have access to data.
Mm-hmm. Well, like I mentioned a while earlier when we were having the conversation around education, we have partnered even with universities to give them a special bundle for their students. So we are always open to having these conversations as well. And like I mentioned again, we have an education plan that is available for our primary and secondary, especially if you have a candidate for okay, we realize that the exams are not going to happen this year, but we've already put that out there. So the basis I'm trying to say is that we are always open to partner with government and other institutions for us to be able to deliver value to our customers and to the public at large, all right? So essentially, when that opportunity arises, you can count Safaricom to be first on the table to raise up the hand and say, we are able to help, we're able to partner, and we're able to engage. Yeah.
Is there any company in this country that does what you do who are as huge and have as large an outreach as yours?
In what aspects?
In all aspects.
From a telco or
all aspects. I'm including everything that you
Internet
people
and
do.
data.
Yes.
I think it's a fact of there that Safaricom is probably one of the biggest companies in East and Central Africa, and we engage in the public in a lot of other things in the market. From our data, voice, and data. We have fixed services. We are what we'd call an integrated services company, but I don't think there is anyone who's bigger in this country than Safaricom, even from a capitalization perspective.
Okay, if then that is the reality, and you have reached in the furthest corners of this particular country, and right now the big challenge we seem to have with education seems to be one of using modern technology, which you people actually have a great handle on to ensure that, let's say, learning takes place. Every so often I read of offers you make on phones, sometimes on computers. So when you talk of partnerships with the government, does Safaricom have something similar where, for instance, laptops, a tool that is required by, say, university students, can be acquired with your help, paid using a certain mode of payment that is acceptable and easy on the parents and the students? Because bundles alone will not do it. And it's not as though each and every student needs your help, but those who do. Such a partnership, is it possible?
Well, it's always possible. Like I just mentioned earlier on, that we are actually doing something around giving phones at a small payment plan. So if we are doing that, then I don't see why that would be a problem. But if that conversation comes on the table, we would always be more than happy to take it up. But I can tell you honestly, I don't think we have any of those conversations. But if they come, you can rest assured that we'll be more than happy.
Why must you wait for it to be taken up? I mean, the oodles of money that Safaricom makes, they make them in this region and mostly in this country. Surely, CSR, shouldn't that be something that Safaricom should pick up and say, look, we're making this offer because there seems to be a problem. We want to fill this gap. It is, after all, expanding your business.
So, like I mentioned, that we have started with the phones right now because that is the easiest way that you can actually be able to reach. When you talk about laptops, you'll probably be limiting the number of people you can reach. All right?
Why?
But when you talk about the phones, because the people who have the need for laptops, you probably be 10, 20,000, but millions of people need smartphones. So that's why we started this.
Right now, we are talking about millions of students who would use a laptop.
Yeah, but Eric, think of it from this perspective, all right? We are talking about them not even having a basic smartphone to start with, okay?
Yeah.
So if you're talking about being able to access other things, like even being able to communicate over and above just being able to access that education, with a smartphone, you can actually be able to access that education. You can be able to log into those classes. As we speak right now, we're having an interview. I'm not even in the studio, and I'm doing it from a phone, right?
Yep.
So most of the time when you start doing something, always start with something that has the biggest impact. Okay? So if we started with the phones, it does not mean that we cannot be able to move to laptops. But can we, first of all, be able to roll out the smartphones, which is where you have the most reach? But think about it. If you're able to give people the access of not asking someone, give me 10,000 shillings for a smartphone and tell them, okay, you can actually be paying for this thing for 20 shillings a day and still be able to get a data bundle and a voice plan with it. That is actually more impactful than probably setting up laptops. But that we will get there. Let's just get this one fast out so we can meet and reach the most people we can. And you can imagine for us to be able to give it on a payment plan, it's a considerable investment on our end. But we're still willing to continue investing in that so that we can be able to get everyone into the digital divide.
What's the future like, Martin, with a view towards development or developed data infrastructure in this country or even in the region?
Well, I think from where I see the future going into is that we are going to have a much more content-driven economy. And I can actually tell you, if you look at the trends globally, you can actually see that most of the investment is going towards content a lot, and most of the content companies are even buying up telcos in the developed world. Because at the end of the day, you need to realize that what we guys as telcos provide is a pipeline or a conduit that takes the customer towards some content. So essentially, what we're looking at is that the conversation is going to shift from I want to sell you a data bundle to me giving you access to the content, because that is the end play. All right. So that is significantly going to change, number one. Number two, technology keeps evolving all the time, and we have to keep changing and looking at where we're going. For instance, 5G is starting to become a conversation now. It's probably going to be the biggest thing in the next 3 or 4 years. We are not very sure how that works out, but that's a reality. Number four is that customers are going to start operating in a space where volume is not a conversation anymore. And that's why you're looking at people moving towards the space that is fiber and what we call fixed internet, because that one you do not pay for a bundle. That one you pay for access for probably a month and you pay the specific amount of money. So there's interesting spaces that data starts getting into as the technology, number one, evolves, and number two, the accessibility for that technology becomes available to the mass market. Yeah.
You mentioned 5G, and so let's talk about 5G for a bit. So right now, Safaricom has the 4G and the 3G network in some areas, right? How is the utilization of, for example, the 4G bandwidth, and are we ready for 5G?
So actually, I'll tell you, for instance, at the moment, the combination of 3G and 4G, we've covered about 86% of the population, and we are looking to get to about 100% of the population covered by 3G and 4G. The utilization, to be honest with you, is actually very impressive because Kenyans are using data considerably. So we're actually seeing a use of those networks. But now you see, when you look at 5G, the use cases for 5G change. All right, it is not what you need 5G for is not necessarily what you need for 4G, because the technology that is 5G, number one, the latency is actually towards zero. So essentially, it means that it's real time. So that means most of these things that need to be done real time, like what in the developed world they are calling driverless cars, where you can't afford to have latency, then those use cases start coming in, artificial intelligence and all those things. Their need is very different. To be honest with you, in terms of where we are as an economy right now, apart from just normal speeds, I think those use cases will have to evolve. But the use cases that we have right now for internet are well served by 4G, because people are just looking for, access to content, for instance. Yeah. People are looking to be able to do internet-based operations where it's not a matter of life and death, like if you're having a driverless car that can crash if there's latency, all right? So there's those considerations to be made. But 5G is the reality of the future. And you start seeing Internet of Things coming into play, where you can be able to have a home that you control without you being there. That will require 5G of some sort. So there are a lot of those things that then start coming into play. But as an investment for 5G, when that kind of time comes, because also it is subject to getting our spectrum approval, we should be happy to get into that space as well. So it's a space we are looking into this space.
Still have about 5 minutes of a conversation with Martin Mabuya. He's a senior manager for mobile data at Safaricom. We are discussing mobile data and what Safaricom is doing and the kind of offers that Safaricom has. If you've got any question to ask, you can call in 0719-012-600. That is 0719-012-600. Martin, talking about consumption and looking at how Kenyans are consuming data and what they're using, as their social media platforms, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's said that WhatsApp is the biggest social media platform in Kenya.
It is.
How many different products do you have to support usage of WhatsApp?
So actually what we have done is that for every bundle you buy, we give you WhatsApp for free.
For every
Alright?
bundle,
So
WhatsApp is free. Explain.
Yeah, we give you. Yeah, what we do is that, for instance, if you buy a data bundle at what, let's say 500 MBs, we give you an access to WhatsApp. So that in case if you run out of your the bundle you're using, you can still continue to be on WhatsApp. And most of the people, if you think about it, as long as they're connected to WhatsApp, they're still
They're
online.
good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So if our plans come with a free WhatsApp access with them, and actually because of the same insight that we said, that sometimes you run out of data, but most of our lives, let's just be honest, run on WhatsApp.
I've
Yeah.
actually been noticing
And,
that. So sometimes
yeah.
phone is telling me that I cannot access my browser.
You are Facebook or whatever, but
Yeah,
WhatsApp is
but
still
WhatsApp is still
It's
active.
because of the free WhatsApp that we give you.
Does it run unlimited?
No, actually, we give you to a certain limit of the bundle that you buy. But the purpose of that thing is to keep you going when your data bundle runs out.
Okay. I'm still a lot
Yeah.
interested in how soon you're going to roll out this, what you're saying, the accountability side of things, where when somebody buys data, they can see how they are consuming that data.
Yeah.
Like towards
No, that thing is actually ready. We are testing it right now. So in a couple of months, it should be out in the public.
Without a shadow of a doubt, the innovations that Safaricom has made and the strides that they have endeavored to ensure that the efforts actually benefit the citizenry are exemplary. There's no question about it. But there is a great deal more that Safaricom could do. You do have something called Safaricom Foundation, isn't it?
Yes, we do.
What does it do exactly?
So Safaricom Foundation's job is to support the community. So we have a whole bunch of projects, water projects, hospitals, schools. We actually support our especially in the marginal areas. And our biggest focus is around water, education, and health. So those are the biggest things that we actually invest in. We have a whole lot of projects that we support. And what people do is that you actually come and tell us that we have this community project that we want to do, and we support those projects. And it's not just Safaricom Foundation. We also have a foundation called M-Pesa Foundation. So there are two of them. So the M-Pesa Foundation, number one, we have a school that supports underprivileged kids who are actually bright kids that need support. So we do that, and we also support a whole bunch of projects. If you go to our site, I think you can see a whole breakdown of the side of the projects that we support, and there are a lot of them. The only reason that you probably will not see them out there is because when we support the community, we just do that. So we don't use that for publicity. We just support the community.
As I said, it is, it's not just commendable, it's laudable, it's excellent. However, may I suggest that instead of waiting for people to come to you in these extraordinary times, that you also keep an ear out for things that need your help, and you jump to it instead of waiting for people to actually come to you to seek. Because some people may not even be in a position to bring their problems to you.
So most of the time, we actually get those things from the general community, like even the what I'd call the public administration of such areas. But your point is well noted, that we can actually be able to see things, and we actually do that a lot. Like even in the COVID time, you can see that we actually giving out PPEs. We supported government directly in terms of giving money that was going to help communities that are at risk. So we do a lot of that, and by the way, any person out there who thinks that there's a project that they need us to support, we are more than happy to support. But when we see causes that are actually out there that need support, we always jump on them, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Martin, for speaking to us today.
Yeah.
I'd like to give you just this
Thank you,
one
guys.
more
It
minute
was a pleasure.
so you can speak to Kenyans and tell them what you'd like as Safaricom, what you'd like Kenyans to know.
Well, I think for me, the one thing I'd actually to put out there is that we are always listening to what our customers have to say and the public at large. And this company is actually founded around the community because it's actually a Kenyan brand, and we've actually grown with Kenyans, and we are going to have to continue to grow with Kenyans, and we are also very grateful of the support that our customers have given us over time, and we commit to continue being relevant and being honest and transparent and honest for you as our customers. Thank you.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. Martin Mabuya is a senior manager for mobile data at Safaricom PLC. He's been speaking to us about what kind of innovative ideas they're coming up with at Safaricom. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Njeri Latiff. We have in the room CT Muga and Nduh Okoh. We are taking a short break on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
It's 5 minutes to 8 o'clock. The Situation Room. The conversation continues. Well, the issue of data and affordability. And I like what Martin said about the future, basically, is where everybody is just going to be using data, will become part of our daily life, right? And so accessing data should not be an issue that becomes a conversation of volumes. It becomes a conversation of, I have it. I have paid for it. I have access to it. The issue of I have paid for it, it's running out, should not really be a conversation.
I also think that companies that are going to be winning and stay winning in the coming future are those that actually lend their hand to the situation that's taking place in the country at the time. I think it'll be companies that decide to make an effort to say, okay, these are the problems that could be faced. It's obvious that government is not able to do it on their own. And this is the one that we're going to select and decide to run with. I think those are the companies coming in the future that are going to be and stay winning.
You know, when you're a business entity like, say, Safaricom, even what appears like CSR essentially is planting seeds for future business benefits.
Absolutely.
Yes. So chalk it under marketing, chalk it under innovation, chalk it under whatever it is.
CSR.
Yes, but at the end of the day, that product ends up being known by people who ordinarily would not know it and who in the future will consume it, because any business entity that wants to stay relevant has to focus on the future. Yes.
I mean, if you want to look at, examples, the world is replete with them. Look at huge telcos in other parts of the world that have now become synonymous with things like football. When you want to look at the O2 Arena and things like that, telcos. Looking at the trends that the world is taking and the direction in which they're going into the future, and then being able to piggyback on them. Exactly. It's not about... You can call it whatever you want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's more business for you as an organization. But at the same time, it's global recognition.
In fact, if you look at countries that are very populous, one of the things that these telcos have done, they've ensured that their costs are really affordable. So they charge you in cents.
Or zero. Yeah.
But they know where they make their money.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And like you said, it's about content. The big content companies are now actually buying up telcos.
Right.
So it's what are you doing with the data that you have?
So
when
they're
you're
buying a
consuming
platform.
That's it.
They're taking up a platform that they can now use for the content which they know is the eye for consumers.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the way of the future. Keep it right here. This situation room. The conversation continues. In the next hour, we will ask, are hospitals getting scared of COVID-19? We've seen very many reports on social media, even in the media, of people who are complaining that they went to a hospital, they were turned back, they were turned away. They were exhibiting symptoms that appeared to be for COVID-19, and the healthcare workers there were basically turning them away, not wanting to deal with them. As we come to the top of the hour, CT, today's proverb.
Today's proverb falls in that category of proverbs that are referred to as African proverbs, okay? When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
Say it again.
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
Okay. So where are they looking?
You want to see where things went now. Whether you're ready to go and save it
Few
is a
want to
totally
take the
different
risk.
question. Exactly.
Okay. Is it because of the size of the needle? Because of the use of the needle?
Or the danger that the well poses,
It is something to marvel at,
isn't it?
something to while your time with and say, well, isn't this wonderful?
It's
But,
gone.
but beyond that,
Can you see it?
no, can you see it? No. Okay. Can you see it? No. Okay, where did it go? But beyond that, no.
No. All right. The conversation continues. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's now 8 o'clock.
right, so the issue this morning seems to be the fog in several parts of the city. We're looking at Mombasa Road. We're also looking at the outskirts of the Nairobi metropolitan area. And as you head towards Nakuru through Limuru and in certain parts of Naivasha, the fog is still very low. And then we do have showers in those areas as well. So now the thing is, people are going to move slower because of this. So this is going to affect traffic. So if you're stuck, not necessarily that something has happened, but people are moving slower because of this. Okay. Coming into the CBD from Thika Road this morning also doesn't look too bad. We have a few issues here and there on Mombasa Road, but the eastern and southern bypasses are working very well. We don't seem to have any issues there whatsoever. We're likely to get, into traffic hour proper, and we will likely get more traffic, but we'll let you know where that is so that you can plan accordingly. Spice of MKE, also do let us know what you see so that we can warn others. On Thika Road, the service lanes, however, are being used and used well, so there's no bumper-to-bumper action there.
Traffic. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room,
Well, thank you very
a place
much
for
for
hard
staying tuned
truths,
to the Situation
debates,
Room right
and
here on
elevated
Spice FM,
conversations.
Spice FM
The
broadcasting
Situation Room,
Nairobi,
witty,
Mombasa,
political,
Zoom,
engaging, deep,
Eldoret,
controversial.
Kerry,
In the room, we
on
have
our social media
CT.
of platforms Spice FM KE, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. And right now, again, for the next 1 hour, we are also live on KTN Home. Let's talk about COVID-19 and hospitals. A story on page 5 of the Standard this morning. Hospitals told not to turn away patients. The government is directing hospitals not to turn away patients with COVID-19 symptoms. It's coming as the country recorded new cases of COVID-19. During the daily update yesterday, the Health Chief Administrative Secretary, Dr. Rashid Aman, said every facility should be ready to handle COVID-19 cases. Every facility should be ready to handle COVID-19 cases. This is what the government is saying, and is regretting that hospitals are turning away patients with COVID-19 symptoms. From where we sit as a ministry, this is likely like any other disease, and we'd like to fight any move that would lead to this disease being stigmatized. Aman is, however, saying due to unfamiliarity with the illness, some institutions might fear admitting such patients. Institutions must be prepared for the reality that we have, that community transmission of COVID-19 is here. This means that we will get people with symptoms, and we should treat them just like we will treat any other person who will come with any other disease at any other time. This goes with a story that's a headline of The Star, for example, this morning. I was dying with COVID. No hospital wanted me. It's telling the story of a gentleman called Robert Karaoke, who says around June 26th, it was a Friday, he was rained on while he was going home to Kiambu. On Monday, he felt very cold and also developed a small cough, took antibiotics, but the cough persisted. It was dry and irritating, and he felt like he was choking, right? Falling short of breath. This 36-year-old man went to hospital. He says he was not even used to allow the toilets of one facility. He was quickly ushered out of the gate, and he was struggled for 48 hours, begging different hospitals in Nairobi to admit him. 2 others rejected him, and time and breath were running out. Direct story of somebody who says, presented himself. He has, what does he say? He has medical insurance, which is to the tune of 500,000 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
But that was not the issue. He presented himself. He said, I have this dry cough. I'm running short of breath. He had a temperature of 38 degrees. That alone was, okay, no, sorry, we cannot admit you here. 48 hours trying to go to different facilities, was not admitted. This is not unique. We have heard other stories. We've seen other stories on social media where people are saying that they've gone to a hospital and they're told, you know what, you need 650,000 shillings deposit so we can admit you. Basically just putting up a barrier. So you cannot access our facility. What's happening?
Well, by the time you hear the CAS saying that that hospitals should be ready, then there's an intonation that hospitals are
clearly not
ready.
At what point were they ever ready?
Exactly. They were never ready. And for it to be said that now they should actually be ready, at what point is that going to be? And unfortunately, we're already at the place whereby who needs to tell you not to turn away a patient, first of all? Secondly, by the time the CAS is then saying should accept, do you think that statement alone is not going to have some kind of mind shift amongst medical facilities and say, okay, well, you know what? The Ministry of Health has says we should take them in. So from tomorrow, we are then going to take that in.
Yes.
We are going to change our complete and total mindset about this and then now start to accept them. Do you really think that is going to be the case?
And against the backdrop of hospitals and health facilities complaining that this same government has not provided them with adequate protective gear, has not provided them with adequate wherewithal to be able to manage these patients.
And that's, I think, where the crux of the matter is. Because if you're working at a health facility and you're the first person that a patient will walk to, and they're exhibiting these symptoms, and you're not dressed in PPE.
You're exposed.
You're exposed. What's your first reaction as a human being?
Self-preservation.
Self-preservation. So we are seeing very many of these facilities, these institutions doing that. But the question also is, why are the managements of these facilities not giving PPEs to their workers? We can go and say,
have they received the PPEs to begin with?
If it's public hospital, we can say government. If it's private hospital, received from who? That's your job.
No, Eric. No. The issue surrounding PPEs, what is in the public domain is monies that have been spent on PPEs. We've been
said
told
to have been spent.
It's been documented as spent. That's what I'm saying. We have information that they have plans, to distribute these things. As to whether these things have been distributed and the manner and the quantities that have been distributed, I am in the dark. If someone has more information about this, maybe they can provide me that information. But it is not just a gray area. It's oblique, it's opaque, it is misty, it is foggy. You cannot tell what is happening in that sphere. And this is against a backdrop of a situation where, even before COVID, we had problems with our hospitals providing basic medication. It's not being available. We had a problem with some institutions, health institutions, people going on strike for the same reasons. There is no indication that these problems were resolved. And remember, health is supposed to be a devolved what?
Function.
Precisely. So, if these things can be cleared, if I have an understanding that these things have been done, then we know where to continue the conversation from. Right now, I can only have a conversation about the vagueness with which I'm approaching this particular subject. Yes.
But then you want to ask yourself the question that this young gentleman, Robert Karaoke, as he gave his story, what if, God forbid, he had died and went around looking for a facility that would take him? It's not a matter of, because look, he was very clear. It's not a matter that he did not have the money, right? He went about, could not find a place. What if he had died? Because then later it was found that he was COVID positive, right? What if he had died from these complications?
At that point, in those very early stages, when he was seeking admission and he wasn't getting any admission into facilities.
Now, if he has reported this, your mind wants to go to the numbers of others who have gone through this very same situation or worse, but then did not have the possibility of going to a media house or somebody interviewing them or asking them what exactly happened. How many more people are being turned away? How many more people who may have the wherewithal to go and get medical attention are not getting it for this very same reason? The truth is that people are afraid. We may want to think that medical or health workers are some kind of angelic being that have descended from heaven, but they're human beings as well. So the fear
is real.
But is it justified when people go to look for health care and are not given?
Let's drop in somebody who's a player in this sector. And this is the CEO of the Nairobi Hospital, Dr. Alan Pamba, our friend. Good morning, Alan.
Morning, Eric. How are you?
We are fine so far.
Keep it that way.
We can't predict the next 10 minutes, but all right.
Safe to put it that way. So, Alan, you've heard what we have introduced as the topic for this hour. There are very many complaints in both public and private hospitals. We saw, for instance, the wife of the late Papa Shirandula and what she said during the funeral. It was public, it was broadcast, and we saw the reaction from your compatriots at the current hospital and what they were saying. But this story, plus very many other stories out here, are basically indicating that hospitals are scared of COVID-19. What's the true situation?
Eric, you make a good point, and I think it's in this very station I'd spoken earlier, and I'd mentioned that COVID is going to test the resilience of health systems across the world. And where we are right now in Kenya, we are seeing the beginnings of what looks like a surge. We did do a lot of things right at the beginning of the pandemic to allow hospitals to prepare and be ready for this. And I think the test is now. And we are seeing an increased number of people looking for COVID testing and an increased number of people testing positive for COVID. Thankfully, not all of them need to be in hospitals. But for those who do need to be in hospitals, the question is, do we have enough facility to take care of them?
Do we?
Well, I can only speak for the hospital that I run. And I think we've done as much as we can. I have no knowledge that as an institution we've turned away any COVID patients because we haven't had capacity to take care of them. We have come really close to that. I'll tell you that for a fact. 2 weeks ago, I was called on a Saturday, and we were down to our last 2 beds. And it's very scary when you get there. Because you begin to worry, well, we might get to that stage where we're turning people away. Thankfully, we didn't, but we are running very close to capacity at the moment. Now, the first duty, going back to the point made earlier on, I think Okoh made the point, of a hospital administrator is to keep your health workers safe. If you can't keep them safe, then you will quickly have no hospital, because the hospital is not the buildings. It's actually the people that run those facilities and the buildings. And so every administrator has to make sure that frontline health workers who will meet these patients have the PPE, the protective gear that they need. If you don't provide them that, it's only human and natural that they fear.
Right.
They're just as vulnerable as the rest of us to catch COVID. And so we have prioritized that in our hospital. And it's been a very difficult thing to do because, as we said in one of the previous programs, COVID is one disease whose supply chain has failed. You get a couple of monopolies running the supply of key equipment or gear that you need to take care of COVID patients, because they're in short supply globally. And so they're prohibitively expensive and sometimes not available at all. And when you tell, your receptionist at the front of the hospital or the doctors and nurses in the A&E department that, I'm sorry, you have no face shields, you have no N95 masks, you have no PPEs, but I still expect you to receive COVID patients coming to the hospital and take them to a ward bed. You can't do that. I do worry that some hospitals are in such a situation, and that's why you get dramatic situations where, patients coming in with COVID-like symptoms are not even allowed to use the toilet in the hospital and are literally probably chased away. And we do get some of those referrals, where it's done decently. We get a phone call and we're told we've got somebody, we think they have COVID. Would you mind taking them? And a couple of times we've sent ambulances out to other hospitals to receive some of those patients, or they've been brought to us. Because as long as you have the capacity and the person is happy to come into your hospital, it's hard to turn them away. So this is testing the resilience of our health system.
As a private hospital, if I may ask, Dr. Pamba, how do you manage to ensure that you equip your health staff adequately to ensure that they are A, protected, and B, that you have sufficient equipment to deal with people who exhibit or people who come to the hospital with COVID complications?
Is that Charles?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
It's quite challenging, Charles. It's not easy because we have to forecast very, carefully and purchase the required PPEs and other supplies in the highest volumes that we can get. In some instances, we succeed. In others, we don't succeed so well. But so far, we've been lucky that our forecasting has generally matched the number of cases that we've been handling and the requirements for our inpatients. It takes a lot of foresight on the part of the hospital administration to be able to predict this is how many PPEs I'm going to need or N95 masks I'm going to need over this period of time. And there may be no supply in 2 months' time, so let me buy for the next 4 months or 5 months and be able to run my operations. It also takes a certain degree of financial muscle to be able to do that, which I appreciate not every hospital can do.
Yep.
So you'll get variable degrees of care or continuity of care across hospital, depending on how well they're forecast and to some extent the financial muscle that they can bring into this to buy these really expensive supplies at very high prices.
Alan, I'm just looking at this now, just from what you've just said, to the general sentiments that may be out there. Anybody then who does begin to notice symptoms, how then or what then would you say to people who have the fear or that they may go to hospital and then be rejected based on this, that we don't know if we have enough that could cater for everybody? Then what does the general populace do?
Well, I think the first thing is listen to what the President and the Cabinet Secretary of Health are saying. Take care of yourself. This thing is real, and we are all vulnerable.
Yeah.
And there's no telling whether I will need to go to hospital or not, just purely based on my age. Yes, it's true, younger people are less likely to develop severe symptoms. But we've seen everything from a 1-year-old to a 36-year-old to a 99-year-old coming to hospital and unfortunately sometimes succumbing to COVID.
Right.
So I think the first thing is we all need to be vigilant. Let's not lower our guard. Even when the government tries to release the lockdown to help the economy run, it doesn't mean that things are good and I can now take off my mask or stop social distancing and drink through the night. Doesn't mean that at all. We are still very vulnerable.
And we ought to take care.
We ought to take care.
There's something that you said, Alan, that when you look at hospitals, financial muscle of a hospital is critical at this particular point because you are dealing in challenging times in terms of procurement. So very many hospitals were already not doing so well before COVID. Then COVID came and numbers completely went to almost zero. And now they're trying to revive their businesses. So they really do not have that kind of cash to be able to operate and do these things. So what should they be doing? It's a reality. COVID is there. The second reality is that patients are likely to walk to those facilities exhibiting COVID-19 symptoms, others exhibiting other symptoms that are not for COVID-19 and seeking healthcare for other ailments.
You're right, Eric. It's very hard for hospitals because we've gone through a dip. Our revenues are rock bottom, and now we've gone through a dip in terms of revenues, and now we're getting a surge in terms of COVID, and expected to procure COVID supplies in large volumes at high prices, and hold capital in that way as we hopefully see patients and then recover the investment. Not many hospitals have access to cash in that way, or credit from banks and so on. We have appealed to government to support us so that any monies owing from insurance is paid. And, you know, in some instances, we've had to take a very strong stance. And, you know, because as a hospital, we recognize if we can't access what is owed, and we don't want to get to a borrowing situation when we have debt out there,
Yep.
then we're going to be turning away patients who need to be saved at this point in time in history. So we've taken a hard stance, and you know the insurance companies have supported us and continue to support us in terms of settling any previous debt as we go through this dip. There may be a role for government to also support some hospitals even more to ensure that they are well stocked with supplies that are required to take care of COVID patients.
Okay.
It's not enough to tell a hospital not to turn away a patient.
In a situation such as the one that we now have with COVID, Dr. Pamba, would it be unusual for the government to even assist private institutions like yours?
It wouldn't. It wouldn't at all, Charles, because there are instances where we have run out of PPEs, and I have personally appealed to the offices of Mutai Kagwe and said, look, we have a crisis. We have no PPEs. We are willing to pay for them. We've got patients coming through the door. And credit to them, you know, a truck has arrived with PPEs, not too much, but enough to tide us to, you know, when we can get the next supply.
Yep.
And we've been able to manage patients. And when our supplies came, we paid back whatever they had given us. I think government should take that approach. Beating COVID will require a really strong level of collaboration
Right.
between hospitals, both private and public, and government.
We'll continue this conversation shortly, Dr. Pamba. We're speaking to Dr. Alan Pamba. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Nairobi Hospital. We want to talk to him about, you know, COVID, fighting COVID-19, and just picking up from that question that you've asked him, CT, about the public sector supporting the private sector, specifically on the fight against COVID. I think COVID, like Dr. Masi has said very many times before, COVID, it doesn't matter whether it's in public or private, should be government responsibility in terms of provision of PPEs, in terms of just coordinating the entire management of COVID-19. We'll ask you, Dr. Alan Pamba, your response to that as other questions also emerge. And also we'll be opening up some phone lines so that people can ask you some direct questions. At the same time, you'll tell us about this big deal that you've signed with the United Nations, where you have you are like going to be the hospital that treats the UN patients for COVID-19. Just take it right here. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting on Spice FM and KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
All right, take a look into Nairobi, where it's mostly cloudy at 14 degrees, highs of 23 and lows of 12 today. Nyeri is going to be mostly cloudy at 14. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 13, with showers expected for most parts of the afternoon. Nakuru at 21 degrees, the high today, with lows of 13. We'll experience showers in the afternoon, where it's mostly cloudy. right now. In Eldoret at 13 degrees, the fog is also quite low here. Rain showers expected later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. We'll take a look then into Kisumu, where it is mostly cloudy. 21 degrees, we'll see a high of 26 and lows of 18. Kakamega with highs of 22 and lows of 15 today. We'll have rainy conditions for most parts of the morning into the afternoon. Malindi at 25 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24 with showers expected later. Mombasa, we will see cloudy conditions through most parts of the morning, highs of 28 and lows of 23. Kampala is mostly cloudy at 19 degrees with highs of 24 and lows of 18 as well. And in Dar es Salaam, it's patches of fog this morning at 24 degrees, likely to go through the most parts of the day with highs of 30 and lows of 21. Johannesburg at 6 degrees this morning is mostly sunny conditions to prevail for most parts of the day with highs of 19 and lows of 2. And in Lagos, 24 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 23 with showers in the afternoon. Oh, it's still an easy time on the Gong Road this morning. It's easy traffic all the way to the city mortuary roundabout. Not so much the case on Mombasa Road, unfortunately. It's bumper to bumper, stretching from the Gateway Mall all the way to Cabanas, and it's not moving as such. There are police in certain parts of the road, but it's still going to take you some time to get through this traffic. We are right in the middle of traffic hour. It's moving very well between Namanga Road and Kitengela. However, once you get on the Greater Mombasa Road, you're going to get stuck just a little bit. Wangige this morning is a no-go zone. There's a 4-car accident there and the road has been closed. So if you are heading into that area, you're going to have to be diverted. Or if you are trying to leave, you have to use an alternate route to get out because police are on the scene trying to sort an absolute mess out. Thika Road, also a bit of a hold up as you're getting into the CBD. We'll take a look at what's happening in different parts in a short while. Let us know what you see. Remember, SpiceFMKE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room with Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting from Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Njeri, Malindi, on KTN Home as well, and as well as www.spicefm.co.ke. We are asking ourselves the question, are hospitals scared of COVID-19? So let's take the facts as we speak to Dr. Alan Pamba, the CEO of the Nairobi Hospital. Fact is, we are at an increased level of community transmission of COVID-19. Second fact is that COVID-19 is now in almost all parts of the country, all counties of this country. The other fact is that private hospitals and public hospitals are receiving patients who are ending up testing positive for COVID-19 or even coming to hospital exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. Fact, as we have seen the reports on media and social media, is that there are some private hospitals and public hospitals that are not able to deal with patients who are walking in with symptoms looking like COVID-19. And among the challenges that the hospitals are facing is that their staff are not really wearing PPEs because the hospitals have not provided their staff with PPEs. Dr. Alan Pamba has just told us they're operating in very tough times where the supply chain has, like he said, collapsed, the global supply chain. Access to these PPEs and other equipment is not easy. There are some people who have monopolized this trade. It's become completely expensive, getting out of reach of very many facilities and governments. So, fact of the matter is very many people are going to be turning into the nearest health facility to them, seeking treatment or seeking care. The other fact of the matter, as we know so far, is that there are very many facilities, especially the small private facilities. You know, we think about the public hospitals, and Dr. Alan Pamba has already told us there are a few that are called the big private hospitals, and there are very many that are small private hospitals operating within the communities. Those ones will not be able to access these PPEs easily, readily, and as frequently as they should. So, The question that CT had asked you, Dr. Alan Pamba, is it possible for the government to work and support the private sector in fighting COVID-19? And I want to advance it to the next point and ask you, should COVID-19 not be a direct responsibility of the government, whether it's in private or in public hospitals?
Thank you, Eric, and thanks, City, for that question. COVID is a public health risk and also a risk to the economy. And to the extent that it poses a threat to the entire nation in that way, it becomes, you can classify it as a security risk.
It is.
And responsibility in that space falls heavily on a government in terms of giving very strong stewardship,
Yep.
in terms of directing resources to ensure that the situation is taken care of adequately. I think that responsibility of government is quite clear, and we can have a debate on to what extent have they embraced it. What is absolutely key is the need for collaboration across private, public sector, and all the players involved. To the extent that that can be galvanized, this country has enough resources within it to take care of COVID. To the extent that that's not galvanized, that collaboration and partnership and cooperation with government stewardship, if we fail to create that collaboration, then COVID will have a big impact on this country, both in terms of human lives, but also in terms of the economy.
Yep.
Dr. Pamba, in addition to what you've said, we're not talking about the future. We're talking about a very present reality in terms of what is going on right now. And just as you've talked about, galvanizing support between private and public facilities, then I am sure you guys have the odd chat here and there. So you're quite aware of what's going on here. The numbers are rising. From all indications, they're going to continue to rise. If this is where we are, right now, then it looks pretty bleak for what would happen like I said, that is going to happen in the coming days and not even weeks. What then is necessary to be done now?
So I think you give me more credit than I deserve, Okoh. There's probably conversations going on above me that I'm not
called you a
aware
prophet.
I will guess that at the level of the president and at that level of leadership, there's a reevaluation of our situation going on right now. Because even as they released some of the lockdown measures that we had earlier on, we saw an upsurge of numbers. And unfortunately, some of the headlines we've seen recently, including by leaders who should know better, are suggesting that the country has lowered its guard and might drive itself in the wrong direction. So I will not be surprised if the government comes back to us with more drastic measures to contain community transmission of this virus. Primarily because if you look at county level, yes, we pushed every county to have 300 beds, in terms of capacity and other things. But do they have everything that they will need if they did truly have a big surge within each county? And your guess to the answer to that question is as good as mine. So there is a nervousness there around our capacity, and there may be need to buy more time. And the way you buy time is you lock down and lock down hard and continue to get organized. We've seen this in South Africa.
Where they've gone back into a lockdown.
Yes.
So the other part of this fight against COVID is the stigmatization. And right at the beginning of the fight against COVID, there was what went into the public as fear for COVID, and also the belief that COVID came as a result of somebody's irresponsibility. The statements being made by senior government officials that, if you're arrested beyond curfew hours, then you're likely to have contracted COVID, so we're going to take you straight into quarantine or isolation until we test you. and the treatment of that, plus the fact that you had to pay for yourself quarantine and isolation. Now, let's come into this now, where in private facilities, insurance is not catering for the treatment for COVID, so people have got to pay out of pocket. In public facilities, we are seeing that the number of hospital beds available are reducing, and that's why people are spending time crossing from one facility to another, because they are looking for available bed space. That brings in the other issue of cost. How do we deal with this cost? Because cost is also likely to become a barrier for people seeking treatment for COVID.
It's a big and important question, Eric. Cost is a huge barrier. It's very expensive to care for COVID. It's not your average cough and cold. When you come in to the hospital with COVID, literally everyone that attends you needs to have some kind of protective gear. And you end up paying for that. From the doctor who receives you in A&E, the nurse who cares for you, takes you to your hospital bed, and everyone who will care for you through your 14 or so days stay there, right down to the cleaner. They all have to be in PPEs. And this gear is super expensive, and patients get shocked when they get their bill after, recovering.
What's the average bill?
And
like at your facility?
I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'd have to check that, but I do know that it is expensive. And this takes me back to the message we had at the beginning. Prevention is so much better than cure here. People do get tired of social distancing, of wearing masks, of washing their hands and so on. Don't get tired now.
So for all avoidance of doubt, and it seems that, unfortunately, some things have to be repetitive. So are we saying that the high numbers that we're seeing of people who are presenting themselves to hospital could actually be lower if individuals do what they need to do by protecting themselves?
Correct. Correct. There's a simple epidemiology principle. I'll be a little bit jargonistic here, but bear with me, called R0. So R0 is basically the number of cases you transmit COVID to when you get it. And if I get COVID now, if no one was taking care of anything, I'd probably transmit it to 8 people before I recovered, or 10 people. When you put in place all these interventions that we're doing, you reduce R0 to probably 4. So you slow the transmission.
Okay.
If you want to kill the transmission, R0 has to be 1 or less. So every one case transmits only to one other, or to none.
Okay.
And then you really control. So everything we're doing is about reducing this R0 number. And if we were effective in reducing R0, then the hospitals see fewer cases. And it's just down to social distancing, hand washing, all those things that we already know.
Back to the issue of cost. How much lower would the cost come for you, for example, if the government worked with you, said the government is the one that's providing the PPEs for all your staff, and the government is, taking care of that side of treatment. So where you are also just charging the government for the basic bed and the basic food and the others, that the other hospitality that you offer to a patient. I'm driving to the point here where I'm saying that somebody comes to the Nairobi hospital, someone goes to the Aga Khan, someone goes to Avenue, or whichever hospital, as long as they're undergoing treatment for COVID-19, it's a government cost. How much lower would it become?
I think we'd see it come down by about 80% or thereabouts. It's huge, because a lot of the cost goes into your PPEs and those sorts of supplies that I talked about, which are very expensive now. And the wisdom in what you're suggesting, Eric, is it is possible, in my view, to come up with probably a standard COVID cost in every hospital that goes to the patient, and everything else the government takes care of. So that when you come, you know that this is what I'm going to pay, because the government has paid for my PPEs, all my supplies and so on, in a particular facility. And of course, it will be a huge investment on the part of the government, but I think it's a worthwhile investment because, as we say, this is a national security issue.
Right. Was there a whiff of a suggestion in that direction at any one point in time?
Not that I've been aware of, Okoh. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to take some questions for you, Dr. Alan Pamba. 0719-012-600. Anybody, if you'd like to ask Dr. Alan Pamba, the Nairobi CEO, the Nairobi Hospital CEO, any questions?
Yeah, that's another CEO.
The Nairobi CEO Hospital.
I haven't qualified for that yet, Eric.
You haven't gotten there yet. So as we as we wait for the questions to come in, tell us about this 1 billion shilling COVID center that you're going to be building for the United Nations.
It's very opportune, Eric. I'm very excited about it. The
Of
whole
course,
thing.
you would be. It's 1 billion shillings.
Yeah.
I'd be excited about 1 billion shillings.
The whole thing was very opportune. So the UN have 20,000 staff and families based in Nairobi, equally impacted by COVID as we all are.
Yep.
Many of those are away from their original homes, on duty to serve humanity in different capacities. If you think about all the UN agencies we host in Nairobi. So they approached governments and they were concerned that if the patients or the subjects got COVID, they were not clear what the policies should be in terms of where they go. And the concern they had was they have a large population of people in our country, and they're acutely aware that our country has restrained capacity to take care of COVID.
Yep.
And in its wisdom, the government indicated that they should look at setting up a partnership where they will expand COVID care capacity. That way, if they needed to have UN subjects taken care of, it's not putting a strain on the capacity that Kenya has. So I'm reliably informed they spoke to a number of potential partners, including us, and we were able to forge a win-win idea between us. And essentially between us, what we're doing is we're putting a 150-bed COVID facility, complete with a theater, laboratory diagnostics, and what is called extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, ECMO, which is a very high
we
level.
know exactly what that is.
It's the first thing.
That sounds like 500 million shillings, what?
Yeah. I'm so proud of it. It's the first in the region. So it's also breaking technology barriers for us as a region, thanks to this partnership. It's a very high level of life support, that will now be unique to our facility. We're going to do this in 6 to 8 weeks. In 8 weeks' time, I'm hoping that we have patients in that facility. It's being built in our old nursing school. It's separate from the Nairobi hospital.
Okay.
I'm excited about that because COVID care will be completely separated from the hospital at that point in time, because we still continue to take care of our regular patients.
Are you going to be able to take care of other COVID patients? Let's call them the Kenyan COVID patients, not the UN.
Of course we are. Of course, Eric, we are.
In
And
the
this
same
is
facility
beauty
that
of
you're
the
building?
partnership. Exactly the same facility. That facility is an extension of the Nairobi hospital. If you come to the Nairobi hospital requiring COVID care, that is where we will take you regardless of your nationality.
Okay.
The advantage for the UN is they have a designated facility where they don't need to think. They come straight there if they have patients who have COVID.
Taking questions for Dr. Alan Pamba, the Nairobi Hospital CEO, 0719-012-600. Also on social media, you can post your questions at SpiceFMKE, Facebook, and YouTube and Instagram, and Twitter as well. Frederick Olwet says the increase of healthcare workers getting COVID-19 is because of, one, the lack of proper training on handling a COVID patient, a lack of enough PPEs, and number three, fumigation of the machines and premises is wanting, considering there's outpatient services still on, of which there's no good planning. What do you say to that, Dr. Ari?
Good point. If you remember when COVID started, I'm being presumptive here, you may not remember, but I was new in this hospital. I was new in this hospital, and I took drastic measures to put in place protocols to protect health workers. I literally shut down the hospital. We stopped visitors coming to see patients. We shut down all our outpatient clinics, 6 of them, and we regrouped. And I got our infectious prevention control experts to advise us on the right protocols to prevent, first, the health workers from contracting COVID, and second, patients and anyone else coming into the facility. These protocols are put in place, rehearsed and honed in, and then we reopened the hospital again. Unfortunately, at that point, we created so much fear in our regular patients, no one turned up. And it took a while before they built confidence that actually it's quite safe for me to walk the corridors of Nairobi Hospital. They've thought this through, I'm going to be fine. It also took a while for our frontline health workers to develop the confidence to manage COVID patients. We established an isolation ward within the hospital, which was ring-fenced completely from everything else, literally airlocked. And you will not see it and never see it unless you have COVID. And we have health workers and support staff, cleaners, people who bring food, etc., who had been trained to be able to get into this space and get out of it safely. They were very nervous at the beginning, but right now they are super confident, and it's so nice to see how, they care for our patients in that space. So that preparation is important.
Okay. David Neto says stigmatization is an issue, and it's really affecting patients, which is not a good thing. And this is basically going from the story that people are turning up at hospitals and being turned away. This entrenches stigmatization for COVID-19. Doctor?
Yes, I agree, Eric. It's not ideal. What hospitals need to do is make sure that the front office staff, the first responders, the people at the front of the hospital who receive these patients, are well trained and are confident and feel safe. If they feel safe, they'll be confident, which means that they have PPEs, are protected and so on, so that when that patient turns up, they are calm and they're able to explain to the patient the required protocols in a calm way. If they're not confident, they panic, and their reaction makes the patient panic and people around the patient panic. And there begins the stigma on subjects who either have COVID or might are suspected to have COVID.
So the issue of stigma, as we basically just go on with this, do you feel that the government is doing enough to fight stigma for COVID?
I think the government has had its hands full to try and prevent transmission, to try and equip hospitals, and keep the subject alive in our heads so that we don't lower our guard. And some things have gone well, others less well. The messaging around stigma might have been stronger or should have been stronger. There may be a few more things that they could do. And I think it's playing out now that we've got community transmission and more people knowing someone who has COVID or being close physically, even in terms of a neighbor in an apartment block or an estate, to someone who is getting home-based care with COVID. And so that messaging needs to be enhanced, even as they drove the home-based care approach.
Let's hear this question from Cyprian, who's calling in from Oyugis. Good morning, Cyprian.
Good morning to you.
You have a question for Dr. Alan Pamba?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Alan.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'm asking if somebody is under comprehensive NHIF cover, can that be used to pay for COVID treatment in private hospitals and public hospitals?
It's a good question.
Now that he's saying that it is the treatment is expensive. Yes.
Alan?
Cyprian, my answer to you is yes.
Yes.
But
yes,
I think that question needs to be appropriately answered by the CEO of NHIF. I give a view as a healthcare worker and also as a citizen of this country. I think we do owe our insured population some degree of responsibility in terms of taking care of them, especially now in this time of crisis. If the cover is not comprehensive in terms of the insurance comprehensively paying for COVID care, it should be very clear what percentage they'll cover up to. We are having some conversations with insurance companies, and I do understand where they're coming from. Care for COVID is hugely expensive, and could be disruptive to that entire industry. So we are having conversations to understand how we can work together for the mutual benefit of our two respective industries, but primarily for the mutual benefit of our common customers. And hopefully those conversations progress faster and we are able to come up with...
Those conversations are taking too long, Dr. Allen. 3 months ago, we asked you this question. You said there are conversations.
I hear you. Yeah.
Insurance companies buying time. What is it? Are they stalling?
Hoping that COVID will disappear and then they don't have to have this conversation.
Yeah.
That's it could be.
Yeah.
Because it's here. It's not doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime quick.
This situation that we're in, Dr. Pamba, can be equated to a state of war. So it's all hands on deck. Private entities that are known to focus on profit cannot focus on the same profits they've been making, because these profits are made off the back of the citizens of this country. Now, if they all die, there will be no profit to make.
Correct.
So it is in their interest to ensure that they play their part constructively in ensuring that the citizenry continue being well.
Correct.
Tell them we said that. Tell them City Muga and the Situation Room says that. As you respond to that, Dr. just hold on before you respond to that. Let's take another quick break. We'd like to say thank you to our audience on KTN Home. Join us again tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, from Monday again. 7 and 8 o'clock will be on KTN Home. The conversation continues, though, on Spice FM. We are speaking to Dr. Allen Pamba. He is the Chief Executive Officer of the Nairobi Hospital. We're asking the question, are hospitals running scared of COVID-19? He's explained to us the many things that hospitals are going through and what is causing what we are seeing as people being turned away by private hospitals, especially by private hospitals, and also in some cases public hospitals. I'll give you an example of a report that we got of somebody who was turned away at a public hospital. When you take this short break, it's 8 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning and thank you very much, KTN Home. See you soon.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
So, final minutes as we conclude our conversation with Dr. Allen Pamba, the CEO of the Nairobi Hospital. Well, he's just told us about this new deal that they've inked with the United Nations, where it's a partnership. It's going to be about 1 billion shillings. They're going to put up a new facility that will be now COVID specific at the old nursing institution, right?
Yep, correct.
Okay, so back to the question of costs, back to the issue that you're saying you've been having conversations with the insurance companies, and CT has told you just take the challenge to them. Just tell them, come on, the way you're going to have customers is by ensuring that they stay alive a bit longer.
No, CT is spot on. You know what I'd say to that? this is something, in my view, that could move so much faster if government stewardship came in, to drive it. Get us around the table, insurers, hospitals, government. Let's say this is a national crisis. We need to sort it out. We're facing a surge at the moment.
Yeah.
Cost is a barrier to many people. How do we resolve it? What can you take care of insurance? What can you take care of private hospitals? And what can the government take care of? Back to what you suggested earlier on, that there's a certain degree of responsibility for the government across all hospitals, public or private. And I think one of the things that has created an impasse between insurers and hospitals is insurers are, reasonably concerned that the cost of taking care of one COVID patient is so high. If they were to pay for all COVID patients, the premiums will not support it, and the industry will literally, come to its knees. Now, at the heart of that is the supply chain. Can we get the cost of these supplies down, or get the government to take that cost? And then the hospitals now literally just charge you for a bed and your doctor and nurse care. So there's a formula that can be reached that could make this a lot simpler. And the simpler we create, the simpler a formula we create, where, Eric, you're told if you ever got COVID, you need to have X shillings a day for 14 days. The rest is covered by government and your insurance. Then you relax.
True.
Hopefully don't lower your guard, but at least you feel comfortable in a country where you are reasonably assured of your life if you got COVID.
Exactly.
Dr. Allen, looking at the suggestions that you've made, would it be totally debilitating to government if such a thing was put in place? Because we ask the question and we say, okay, this can be done, but are we building castles in the sky by even thinking that such a thing could happen? Or is it financially crippling on the part of government?
No, look, Okoh, you saw what Equity Bank did the other day. Huge sums of money donated to
the
help this cause. Yeah, there are a lot of private sector institutions that care for the safety of their workers, who are the same citizens that get COVID. Funding can be galvanized. If we look organized, the World Bank, there are lots of funding avenues that can be tapped into. This country also loses a lot of money in ways that it shouldn't, if you think about it. So I don't think money
is
necessarily the issue here. We can do this.
It seems to be a scapegoat, though, in very, very many cases, that because we don't have the money, therefore we cannot do this, we cannot provide. So the conversation then should be shifted away from this money, yes, and gone back to,
it's a basic responsibility.
It's a basic responsibility of government, then, in this case.
I think government can galvanize and drive and steward to a holistic solution that covers, as you suggested, public and private.
Dr. Alan Pamba, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning once again. Soon, when this COVID thing is over, or at least we have better ways of dealing with it, you'll be sitting on the hot seat here so we can have this conversation face to face.
It will be a pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank
Pamba.
you so much.
Before we let you go, just listen to today's proverb by C.T. Muga.
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it.
Can you make head or tail of that?
He's gone.
That's pretty deep.
It is. So is the well.
So are you talking about the well or the proverb?
You see, what the UN has done is going after the needle. Instead of talking about limited facilities for COVID, they are building one.
Yeah.
What was stopping other institutions or the government from looking into this? Forget the existing, or how quickly they will be filled up. Build others.
The rest are looking down the well.
Nice one. Alan, thank you very much for speaking to us. Have a good day.
And you. Bye for now.
Thanks.
Asante sana. Good morning. The conversation continues. It's now 9 o'clock.
All right, the trouble spots that we still see this morning are on Mombasa Road between Cabanas and the General Motors section of that road. That's where we see most of the drama. Also, Wangige, that accident is still causing some problems. So that road has been closed because it is quite a mess. In and outbound to Wangige this morning, if you were heading that direction, please don't. Or use an alternate route to get out of that main road there because of the accident that has taken place. They're trying to get that sorted, so you won't be able to use that for now. All right, getting into the CBD from Thika Road, from Westerns, Langata Road, and Gong Road, not causing you too much problems this morning, but we'll let you know if it is, and you'll also let us know where you may be stuck so that we in turn may help you. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Traffic. This is the Situation
Asante
Room.
sana mpenzi msikilizaji.
Kwa wakati huu
Kwa wakati huu mwingine, kwa fursa
Wadfa.
wadhifa. Nataka kuchukua wadhifa huu
kutoa shukrani zangu
za dhati
kwa usikizaji mwema ambao mmetukabidhi
kabisa. Okay, so the conversation continues. Here is the issue. CS Mutahi Kagwe has circulated some proposals for comments from technical officers, and these proposals, he intends to limit alcohol drinks to homes. Draft notice says nobody is supposed to take alcoholic drinks in public places, that is including parks, restaurants, parking lots, bars, or wines and spirits shops. You know why. I mean, we don't even need to go into the details of why. You know why. You've seen what we have been talking about in the last couple of days. People going to public places, misbehaving, people forgetting that there was a curfew that was supposed to start at 9, and they end up there at about midnight, and they think, saa tatu ama saa tisa. Was it? Curfew was 9
Or midnight.
or 3. Oh. Aya basi.
This decision is
Tuanze kesho.
it's not really easy to understand. Let's have another drink as we make this
As we
decision.
make this decision.
Tuanze kesho.
Sasa leo imepita.
Yes.
Officer, wewe enda.
Rudi kesho.
Rudi kesho. We've seen an increase in
It's
the
funny, but
number
it's
of
true.
cases. This is what's happening. And also in parks. So people are not going to pubs. Okay? And they're thinking, okay, restaurants, all right, sour. So there's a lot of limitation. So they're going and parking in public places, and they're opening up the car boots and car doors and drinking. And you know then what happens? Is that distance between car A and car B becomes zero.
Non-existent.
So it just becomes another pub, an outdoors pub. And for this reason, the government is mulling this idea of, let's say that there shall be no public consumption of alcohol, at least during this time when you're fighting COVID-19. And he has the instruments to use this. This is the Public Health Act, Cap 242. He can do that. He can actually go and gazette these proposals. They become regulations. And from tomorrow, this will be it. Is this the way to go? From where I sit, I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why don't you just say no more sale and consumption of alcohol?
Because what is going to happen?
Whether you're at home, you can be at home and invite your neighbors.
This is what I'm saying. Because Eric will go to the bar and buy his alcohol, and then he will invite Nduh and CT, and it'll be at home, continuing what we would have done in public, now in someone's home. So there'll be 15 people sitting in the yard and doing the same thing that you would have done in a public place anyway. But what you do is you say, okay, he's told us we can't drink in public, but it has not said that we cannot buy alcohol, right?
Yep.
and he has not told us. He says drink it at home. Who's to stop you from then bringing your friends and, congregating in your front yard or wherever, in your parking lot, and carrying on with the same business? This is the problem, that you open it up to other options for people, and social distancing, be damned, it's out the window. Nobody's really bothering about that because they must drink this thing.
Okay.
Yes, no.
What?
I'm looking at this attack on alcohol consumption.
You're seeing it as an attack.
It
It's
is an attack.
affront on
It is
legitimate business
It is an attack.
and law-abiding citizens.
Yes, and I'm wondering how this one touches on the personal freedoms that we're supposed to enjoy with this new constitution. And I'm thinking of what the reaction to this will be. You see, what the government is trying to do falls under the label of a good thing. They're trying to ensure that the citizenry are kept safe. Even if there was a total ban on alcohol, I assure you, people will drink, not more or less, they'll just continue drinking.
Total disregard for anything that has been said is what you're going to see.
Countries tried, the US famously tried to do precisely this, what you suggested. It was called prohibition. You think it stopped? No.
If anything.
It enriched very many people because now it was illegal.
And the black market thrived.
It flourished.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is this, you have a constitution that seems to take care of very many things, including how you can get your people to be able to understand certain decisions you may want to make. From the top, we are going to decide for you, grown-ups, that you can no longer consume alcohol at all. Okay. I want to see. Why don't they
South
just...
Africa
Yes.
tried this, all right? And South Africa was not just alcohol. It was alcohol plus cigarettes. Just stop sale of
How did
alcohol
that
and
work?
cigarettes.
Terribly.
So what happened? No, not terribly, actually.
When they opened?
No.
How did that work?
Before they opened.
Okay.
So during this lockdown, and we even had this story here of this huge South African brewer, SAB Miller, talking about, it was left now with millions of liters of alcohol. It could not sell. It could not transport from the brewery. It could not even take this from brewery to the storage
Retail,
facilities.
yeah.
It could not take. And they were talking about, well, we'll have now to pour this because the issue is we have banned sale of alcohol. All right? People, to a large extent, stopped consumption.
Adi?
It was being, the main target for this was everybody in the social spectrum. The main target was the bottom of the pyramid, where alcohol consumption is very high. Okay? It was very clear that if you went and said, people who live in Soweto, you're not going to consume alcohol, or people who live here, or this kind of alcohol is not going to be sold, but you can afford to buy some teenagers, well, the whiskey teenagers, if you can afford to buy, it's okay, you can buy and consume. It was going to bring in issues. And that's why the government decided ban everything. So to a large extent, people, the alcohol consumption reduced until they, of course, emerged those backdoor breweries and distilleries where people were now making their own moonshine using whatever they could find. They were using, what is this thing? What's this fruit?
There are many fruits.
The one that's
Pineapple.
going-
Which one specifically?
Pineapple specifically was very, very popular.
Okay.
Right? In
Many fruits.
doing this. And that's why when the government started releasing the restrictions on this, they said that one of the things they said, okay, you can go and buy alcohol now, but you shall consume it only at home. And we saw video clips of people dancing on queues as we're waiting to go and
Kilometers of queues
finally
in
now we can buy
Johannesburg.
alcohol.
Yeah.
Because of that behavior of what happened afterwards, the government has gone back to, let's go back to banning alcohol consumption in total. Because they saw a surge. They saw a surge in number of COVID-19 cases.
Which they're still dealing with right now.
They saw a surge and they were attributing it directly to alcohol consumption, social gatherings, even the number of accidents on the roads came back. And the government was like, no, let's go back to banning, which is why I'm saying, if you completely said no sale of alcohol in Kenya, no sale of alcohol in Kenya, are you not going to be able to be addressing all these issues that we're talking
Eric,
about?
consider for a single second that the people you are asking to enforce this themselves are not that willing to comply. You really think?
They are consumers as well.
Of course they are
Hey,
consumers. Everyone in this country, every cadre, every form of work setup, people are consumers.
But by and large, are people not going to adhere to this?
Eric,
You see, look, how many breweries, formal breweries do we have in Kenya?
many,
Right? Formal.
Formal.
many,
And they are known. And their
Many.
location is known.
many.
For as long as you can enforce at that point and tell Kenya breweries, no more distribution of your alcohol. Right? Tell Keroche, no distribution of your alcohol. Tell the others, the IDKs
Wow.
and the others and Quals, no distribution of your alcohol. You've already dealt with it.
Eric,
You've reduced the
prior
volumes
prior
that's in
to all
market.
this, can we go a little back into history? Not too far back. When curfew was at 7, remember?
Yes.
Okay. Did we have this problem?
Off?
Bars were supposed to be closed, were they not?
Yes.
Every once in a while, you'd hear people who were caught. The bar was closed, but people were drinking
Inside.
Yeah.
All right?
Yes, yes.
I told you a story of the place where I live, the area I live in, where I was having a chat with the Mijikumi, and he was telling me, the problem is this. You go to a place, it's not even hidden. And the people you find drinking, they are law enforcement officers. So what are you supposed to do? And they're drinking with the 190. What are you supposed to do? The point I'm trying to make is this.
Isolated case.
I can only talk about something that I know of and what I have read. I cannot talk about anything else.
No, yes.
This isn't stargazing.
I'm calling this isolated because we're talking about one establishment. In your neighborhood, I'm sure there are other establishments that you know of. And those other establishments, you do not know the stories of.
No, I don't. I even know of some, not only have they shut down, but they've even barricaded the doors and everything.
Yes.
I know this. But the point I'm trying to make is this. Prohibition has been tried before. It was a huge experiment over a long period of time. And the consequences were disastrous. Why is it that the government wants to take a shortcut? Is the alcohol the problem? Is the prohibition the problem? Are the people the problem? Is the government effort and the manner in which they are carrying out this supposedly safety measures the problem? What is the problem?
The problem is
All of them combined.
It's all combined. But if you want to look at stopping the spread of COVID-19, the problem is the manner in which people behave then when they're around alcohol. So it's unlikely that, unless you're going to then have a drink by yourself. But it has been seen, the behavior is that you'll have a drink in the company of others. And what they're trying to do is stop these crowds from forming so that they can then curb the spread of the disease. That's the problem. It's not the sale of alcohol per se. It's the manner in which people conduct themselves when they're around alcohol. And that's what they're trying to stop
The
here.
effects of alcohol. Pombe si mbaya.
The effects of alcohol are known.
Dhambi ya pombe ndio mbaya.
Primarily, alcohol is a disinhibitor. If it's sitting on the shelf, it doesn't do anything. Even when you
It's
consume
you.
it,
It's like COVID. COVID is not moving. It is you who is moving it. This alcohol, if it's in the bottle on the shelf, it's okay. Once you ingest it.
If it's at the brewery, it's even better.
It's the MOU that you and the alcohol arrive at when it's already inside your system. That is where now the problem arises. Because then we begin to understand what the MOU was.
Then you bump like molecules with other individuals and
Yes,
they're also
yes,
behaving in the same manner.
There's a point I'm trying to make here. The government effort, I do not want to belittle it, neither do I want to say that it isn't well considered. I'm simply trying to say that it doesn't help very much when you give this top-down directives without due consideration to the fact that the so-called public would perhaps prefer to have a little conversation about it first. When you have a conversation, I'm sure many people will say, ban it. But let them say it. Then you can say, the public does not want this thing to continue. But if it is you who decides, what you're doing is you're fomenting resistance.
Okay. So this thing is out here. It's receiving comments. Is that good enough?
No, not quite. Let it receive comment for a little while more. Okay? When we the government first instituted a curfew, There was a little mumbling, grumbling here and there, but curfew was curfew. Done, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
When we shut down all public eateries and so forth, a little mumbling, grumbling, done.
Done.
Okay?
Yes.
But you know what? There had been no pronouncement that there will be no consumption of alcohol. There was nothing. It was
So
left grey.
you want public participation on this one, but you want
Correct.
the others, the government to do, government
No,
not
no.
to have a public
There's a
participation
point I'm
whether we
trying
should
to
have
make. There's a
curfew.
point I'm trying to make here. The issue of alcohol to those who consume it is not just a matter of something that people consume. It verges on religion. People who consume alcohol take their consumption of alcohol very seriously. This is the point I am actually trying to make.
Yes.
They may be even a minority.
Thereby endangering themselves, especially in these COVID-19 times, and others.
And I'm arguing.
Why are we having a conversation with them?
Oh dear. You belong to that school of thought
They're a danger.
which actually believes that just because someone consumes alcohol, they should not be spoken to
No,
about
no,
these things
no,
they
no.
consume.
Look, if we did not have a conversation about the cessation of movement, we did not have a conversation about curfew, why are we having a conversation about alcohol?
For the simple reason that that particular law that was applied then, that one, okay, left this one untouched. Had they applied it then
Perhaps we would have
this
been saying
discussion wouldn't even have arisen. Because it would have been one fell swoop.
So it's a little
Everybody-
too late. That's what you're
No,
saying.
it's not a little too late. Because you've let it roam around and to acquire some legs and to acquire some freedom, you then need to understand this freedom and require even a decision.
16 minutes after 9, let's take a look at the weather and then we'll come back to this conversation. We now ask you to join the conversation as well. 0719 CS Mutahi Gagwe intends to limit alcoholic drinks in homes. What's your opinion on this? Do you support this move? Nduh and I are saying, in fact, just stop the sale of alcohol altogether. Just like that. No sale of alcohol altogether. What's your opinion? 0719 012 600.
The sun speaking out through the clouds in Nairobi today. Mostly cloudy conditions still for most parts of the morning. 16 degrees, we'll see highs of 23 and lows of 12. Nyeri is mostly cloudy at 15 degrees. Highs of 21 and lows of 13. It's likely to be a wet afternoon. Showers expected in Nakuru this afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 13. It's a foggy day in Eldoret and it'll turn into rain later with highs of 19 and lows of 12. 25 degrees, a high and lows of 18 in Kisumu today and mostly cloudy conditions. Kakamega will have rain showers in the afternoon with highs of 23 and lows of 16. Malindi is mostly cloudy at 27 degrees. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24 with rain expected later. It's mostly cloudy in Mombasa at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 23. 19 degrees and mostly cloudy in Kampala, highs of 24 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny at 25 degrees, highs of 30 and lows of 21. 7 degrees and mostly cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 19 and lows of 2. Looking into Lagos, where it's partly cloudy at 24 degrees, rain expected to come down anytime now, highs of 29 and lows of 23. All right, let's take a look into New York. It's coming round about to Wednesday morning, 26 degrees and partly cloudy. Highs of 32 and lows of 25. London will be mostly sunny today with 16 degrees currently, highs of 24 and lows of 14. And finally for today in Paris, it's mostly sunny at 16 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 and lows of 14.
Okay, let's be true with ourselves, all right? When the government came up with these initial measures, restaurants were closed and they were only allowed to offer takeaway services, all right? Pubs were closed, and especially at night, but pubs were closed in general, all right? There was an indirect ban on the sale of alcohol, especially consumption in those places. There was no ban on consumption of alcohol in public places.
Or the purchase of alcohol.
Or the purchase of alcohol at all. What did we see? We saw people being arrested because they were hosting house parties. We saw MCAs in Nyeri who had taken alcohol and avocado and ugali and they were arrested. Not because of the avocado or the ugali or the alcohol, but because of congregation. Right?
Okay.
We saw this. We saw the same video circulating of leaders in Nakuru County doing the same. And others because of they were congregating. And it was obvious that they were consuming alcohol. So we know very well that consumption of alcohol in homes was happening, but people were breaking the rules on very many occasions. So with this intention by the CS Mutahi Kagwe to ban consumption of alcohol in any public place. This is parks, restaurants, parking lots, bars, or wines and spirits shops. The only introduction here is the parks and the wines and spirit shops and the parking lots. But bars, restaurants, and hotels, we've been there before. Is it going to be any more effective?
Nope, because people are just going to take the party home. Look, you can think about it this way, is that everybody's going to find a way. Some people will find a way because at the end of the day, it's like you're curtailing on their rights to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do. And alcohol, I think, look at the social scene here. Alcohol plays a big role in that. But again, we're talking about the fact that it's not the act of consuming alcohol. It's what you do while you're doing that. It's the effects of it. It's the whole atmosphere. It's the environment that's created by this event, whatever it is. And it could start by something as simple as having a glass and then calling your buddy CT. Guess what? While I'm sitting outside, how about you pass on over? And then before that, it becomes 10 people sitting in your front yard and you're doing something totally different. And the reason would be given to say, well, what I'm doing is not illegal. After all, they didn't say that I couldn't have a drink at home. But it's not, the problem is that it's not going to be alone. And you open up the door for so much in terms of interpretation of what then people would be allowed to do or not do. You've given a beautiful example here of what happened in South Africa. There was no question. It is not, okay, well, he said we couldn't do it in a bar, so we could maybe do it. No. Nowhere, nothing. Until the people then who are dealing with its making and its production have to then figure out, okay, now my goodness, what are we going to have to do?
Yep.
What are we going to do
Shut
with
down the
this
plants.
stuff? You know, but it wasn't a question. And what did they see as a result of that? Transmissions actually were controlled.
Yep.
Right? We didn't see people. What we are seeing now in South Africa, the community transmission, was as a result of what happened when they opened up and people then were queuing in Johannesburg and queuing in Cape Town and Pretoria to try and then buy booze or be in a social setting. That's what they're dealing with now until they've decided to shut down again. And those cases then have gone down and have started to, those incidents rather, are on the down, on the downward spiral. However, they're dealing with the result of that opening up today.
These new measures, like City was saying, it's not without screaming and kicking.
Oh, it's not like not like they were docile and said, "All right." They said we shouldn't drink. No problem. We won't say no. Of course
A
not.
headline on the Deutsche Welle website: South Africa's new alcohol ban sparks fury. South Africa alcohol abuse up after lockdown sales ban. This is what was happening. This looking at the couple of headlines that I'm seeing. South Africa's alcohol ban has given a massive boost to criminal gangs. Selling, of course, those illicit. The illicit trade is flourishing. This is what is happening. This is what happened. It was a very lovely headline here by The Economist. Dry the beloved country.
Hey.
But basically, what it two things were happening. One, yes, during that time, there was a massive boost to the criminal gangs, the underground networks where alcohol was being distributed. Remember, ban came, but there was already alcohol in some stores. People had stocks in their pubs, in their restaurants. People had stocks
In their go-downs.
And those ones found themselves their way into
And
the market.
the security forces also have a fair number of individuals working within them
Yep.
who also consume alcohol. And if we're to go looking at the trends that we've read about in the papers and we speak of anecdotally, they often also contribute to some of these nefarious activities by these unspeakable people whom we are referring to as criminal gangs.
But I keep counting. Whenever you say that, I still want to counter by saying that, yes, it's now limited to the criminal network and their small group of clientele.
Anything that is criminal, if it is banned or if it is criminalized, only works if the general public supports it. It works really well. If you ban it and the general public doesn't support your initiative, then unfortunately, these criminal activities, if I may use the word, will flourish.
It's just like the way we were saying. So there was cessation of movement, cessation of hostilities, cessation of movement,
Wow.
right? Before the president opened up. We still saw cases, and we heard of very many cases where people were crossing the border between the Nairobi metropolitan and the neighboring.
There was even a rate.
Regions.
There was a rate to cross.
There was a way to
Eric,
cross.
Yeah.
The point is, though,
I mean,
the point is,
An
though,
entire industry.
there was a
Surely.
reduction. But there was a reduction in the movement.
Eric,
You can't compare, for example, the day before the president reopened and the day after the president reopened.
no,
in
Eric,
terms
see,
of people.
will find a way.
Eric,
Even if you
have
want
an
to look at the
extremely
border,
no,
here-
Eric, you have an
Criminals will
extremely
go.
valid
True.
point. No, Eric has an extremely valid
it would
point.
reduce. It would reduce. But just look at the innovation and creativity that lies around things like this.
You know,
Here,
It's enterprise.
on this side of the border, COVID positive. 2,000 shillings later, cross the border, COVID negative.
Ingia Kenya.
I mean, innovation and creativity when it comes to being able to flout the rules so that you can do what it is that
You
you
know-
need to do. But if you create an environment whereby those opportunities then don't exist, then perhaps you see an even greater
Eric's
reduction
point
in some of these things.
is really valid. You know why? Even as I'm thinking, I'm thinking of just the traffic. The day before,
And
the day after. Way.
Friday and Monday.
No, Friday and Saturday. You don't even go to Monday. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. Now, you must understand that if you're talking about Kenya, let's leave South Africa for a while and talk about Kenya and the mindset that Kenyans have. Every Kenyan is an entrepreneur. You may not think so, but they are.
Yep.
Coming up with new business ideas.
Constantly looking for opportunity.
Constantly. And when I say Kenyans, I mean everybody. No one is excluded here. So, the moment you say this, can you imagine the wheels just churning, saying, okay.
Your pombe type.
How,
I said,
Sasa,
okay, how are we going to...
how are we going to drink this?
Yes. And how do
I
you
mean-
ensure? Yes. How do we ensure that this and this? It's the wheels are churning.
The same
But
thing. When restaurants were told now you can reopen, what did restaurants do? Every bar became a restaurant.
Very, very fast.
speedy.
So we're selling samosa, so we're a restaurant.
We're a restaurant.
We're selling sausages
It's a restaurant.
and chips.
Do you see? And that one is very fast. One in the corner there, suddenly we're selling food.
You have
So
smokies. Like a small
a fried
smokies.
egg can happen. A fried egg can suddenly happen somewhere in the
You talk
corner.
about the guy with the lab coat?
Yes. And the small cart.
Yes.
Selling smokies and
Warm
and
and
boiled
hot
eggs.
smoky and
Yes.
boiled eggs.
Funny, but
with,
it's
with
true.
kachumbari.
With kachumbari. Next to him, people seated drinking alcohol.
Restaurant.
It's a restaurant.
With your tired sausage. With your tired sausage, so long as there's something edible there, it's a restaurant. Do you see? People are going to find a way around it, regardless.
But there's a silver lining here. You know, I would argue that the vast majority of Kenyans are actually law-abiding citizens. I would argue. Anecdotally, of course. And if you give them reason to abide by the laws or the dictates that you've put forth, they will abide.
Well, this is true, Sisi, but look around the world of the cases that you hear of, several things having gone wrong with certain countries. It's not the majority of people who are perpetrating these things. It's a very few. It's a small percentage of people. But then we obviously know that bad news tends to travel faster than good news.
Yes,
so
but-
you don't hear about the people who are law-abiding. You don't.
But we also know of the infection rate.
Exactly. That
That
is where I was going with
are-
this.
yes.
This is where I
That-
was going with this. That very small number, because they say it's one apple. I even have one in my bag. It's one apple that spoils the bunch, right?
One.
Yes, one. It just needs, in a basket of apples, you just need one to be spoiled.
So if I don't have an apple, I don't have a problem.
Come on, go, Joe. Even if you have a potato, same thing, right? But the problem is that we could look at it and say, well, okay, most are law-abiding citizens, and we can kind of almost ignore the small percentage that are not. But unfortunately, with something like COVID, you can't. You can't ignore the low percentage of the people who are not abiding, because they are the ones who are taking this to the people who are essentially abiding by the law and are healthy. That's where the problem lies. So in order to keep a cap on everybody, that's why you need a blanket judgment.
They are not. That Dr. Alan Pamba told us
Was
about.
talking about,
Yep,
yes.
This is it.
Yeah.
28 minutes to 10 o'clock. Let's take another short break, take a look at traffic, and then come back. 0719 012 600. Do you support the proposal by the CS for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, to ban the consumption of alcohol in public places? Would you like it to be extended into banning the sale of alcohol altogether? Or do you say, no, let people be. We are going to people are going to behave themselves anyway. Or we're going to live with this virus anyway. Let us know what you think. 0719 012 600. Also, post your comments on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Good morning.
All right, still some trouble spots this morning, guys, on Mombasa Road and a little bit on Thika Road here and there. Don't forget, Wangige is a no-go zone for now because that accident, for some reason, was really terrible. So they're still trying to work on getting it out of there. So approach, or not, actually don't approach, that's what we're saying, at this point. Use an alternate route if you can find one, or stay away from Wangige for now until that is sorted out. Industrial area, a little bit of a clog up there. Lunga Road is finally open and things seem to be flowing along quite smoothly. So traffic is about to dissipate now. It'll look much better for the next couple of hours before it clogs up again in the evening. So enjoy it. Spice of MKE. That's how you can get in touch just in case something happens that we should know about.
Okay, so now let's open up the debate. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Do you support Health CS Mutahi Kagwe's proposal to prohibit the consumption of alcohol in public places? Let's just go to Twitter first and see. But Barsite Boyd says yes, but that's only possible if we overcome our gluttony starting from the leadership. Meanwhile, why is COVID-19 only prevalent in Kenya and not Tanzania, our neighbors?
Because we don't talk about it. It's a problem.
Hey, Sir Charles, Kenya will soon outpace South Africa and Russia in alcohol intake. I support the draconian measure this time. Brian Owatanga says, it will not be easy to enforce, judging by the recent cases of people locking themselves inside bars. So, yeah, you will prohibit consumption in public places, but they'll be inside the bar. It should be a private place. Mm-hmm. It will be a home.
Exactly. It's just going to take it somewhere else.
They'll convert the bar into a home.
And so what you were trying to avoid will just be worse.
Here we are talking about things we consider to be innovations. Rest assured, something that the general public believe they would like to be involved in, like the consumption of alcohol, it will always be an issue. And the regulations that we've had in place when it comes to time, when it comes to amount. Remember the time when the government mounted the breathalyzer and the testing?
Yep.
You saw that one went. People went to court.
Challenging it.
They challenged it seriously.
Yeah.
The bar owners challenged it. Consumers challenged it. It was challenged. Yeah. Now, for me, it is good that we have a robust
and people came up with ways of telling one another where
they would.
And the roadblocks were.
Yes, and of course, the moment where social media was, you were told, on this road, on this. The point is, the government has a duty to ensure that it looks out of the... Well, the duty is to ensure safety for its citizenry. And I believe this is what they're trying to do. But, if we were to be honest, Eric, you said on the note of honesty, all these alcohol manufacturing entities also pay some serious taxes to the government. So, I would like to see a situation where the government actually forgoes
revenue.
That I'd like to see. Hey. That will fall in the category of miracles.
0719-012-600. Zachary Nakuru, good morning.
Oh, good morning, guys.
How are you?
Morning, Zachary.
I hope you are keeping safe.
Yes, we are.
Now, let me tell you one thing, yeah? In our language...
Zachary, why are you only limiting it to one thing? Why don't you tell us two things instead?
I will. You worry, we should have become a lawyer and you would have gotten the contentious, what do you call it? The senior counsel, yeah? Now, but it's good. In our language, we call beer johi. Johi in Kikuyu means johi. It's something that ties. You know.
Sorry. I didn't hear it. Did you say njoki?
Johi.
With an H.
With an H, johi.
Okay, thank you.
The guy who loves his people very much is variously called johi. That means that him and beer are inseparable. Yeah? I hope you have seen that going around in some circles. Yeah. that means that guy and his people are inseparable. Okay.
Okay.
Now let me tell you, having come from Central Province, I know the effects of beer,
Alcohol.
and controlled drinking. And sorry to say, I lost a brother in 2017 who had told me once, as I was trying to tell him, can you lower your drinking up because it is even affecting your family, okay?
Yep.
And he told me, my brother, can you just cool down, yeah? He told me, chill. And this is what he told me. He told me, even if one of my kids die, when the time to come and to go and drink comes, I won't sit around there as you as tunapanga mataga panda. I will just go and drink. And I told him, oh, okay. That is where beer has you and beer are, okay? If you put beer in the equation of controlling COVID-19, we shall achieve nothing. On Saturday, I went to buy my meat. Yeah, and I went into I could see this place. I asked the guy who was selling me. I mean, you mean beer was allowed back? These guys are opening bars, and I peeped in. Yeah, people are dancing. If Mr. Kagwe is to control COVID-related beer-related infections, that is COVID, yeah. He should come and direct that. If you really want to sell beer and you want to go and drink beer, all of you must have PPEs. Okay.
So that you think that is better than banning drinking of alcohol in public places?
That would be the alternative. If there are some people maybe they have been told if you don't drink beer, you may die. Okay. Let that guy be told if you are going to take it,
then you must have PPEs.
Have PPEs. The guy who is selling you beer must have PPEs. Otherwise, we are crossing. We are only being crossing the selling places. Yeah. All
Closing
the breweries must be ordered. You are not going to transport beer in. You are not. You are not disputing, yeah?
Yeah. Zachary.
Except for that person who has been told, if you don't die drink today, you may die in the next 2 hours, okay?
Thank you, Zachary. Let's hear from Kibet, who's calling in from Nandi. Kibet, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
How are you, Kibet?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you?
Salama kabisa. Do you support this move by the CS?
Yes, I support. But I see it may be impossible in Kenya to be implemented.
Why so?
You know how Kenyans behave. Again, the addicts, there are some people who cannot stay without taking alcohol. So there will be chances of people being taken to hospital to be treated.
Must they take the alcohol in a bar, in a restaurant, in a parking lot?
These people who take alcohol, they really enjoy the company. Yeah? So when they take at home, they don't feel like it nice or enjoyable. Yeah. So that's my opinion.
Okay, Kibet.
It's my first time calling.
Karibu sana.
Karibu sana, Kibet.
I'm always a silent follower.
Asante sana.
But today I managed to, my call managed to come through.
Asante.
So thank you guys. I really enjoyed the show.
Asante sana, Kibet. Have a good one in Nandi.
Good day too.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. CS Mutahi Kagwe has circulated some proposals in which he wants to come and start banning consumption of alcoholic drinks in public places. This includes parks, restaurants, parking lots, bars, or wines and spirit shops. Do you support that move? What do you have to say about this? Alan in Nairobi, good morning.
Good morning, old chap.
How you doing, old chap?
I'm all right. Listen, these guys are using a blunt object to treat a malady. Because there's no direct correlation between bars or drinking and the spread of the disease. what the problem is crowding. So if you crowd and gatherings, so if he wants to control crowds and gatherings, why don't you go for malls and Gikomba and toy market? And if what you want to do is there's no correlation. You know, the problem with the way this thing is being handled is nobody's thinking about economic impact. You kill alcohol and you've done supply chains and livelihoods. But if you're serious about controlling crowds, close malls, close restaurants, and close everything. I mean, the Swedes do not close bars. There's no direct. I mean, you keep talking about South Africa, giving the South African example.
Yep.
Yeah. But just one in an arsenal of interventions. In this place, if you want to control crowds in Nairobi, go for malls, go for matatus.
And leave bars open.
Then we'll take it seriously.
Alan, the suggestion is actually interesting to listen to, but how do you actualize it?
No. Why are they? You know, these guys are just killjoys. What? They just killjoys because if they were serious
Alan,
about
you sound pained.
we seem to now understand the problem. Alan.
So the thing is, because if they wanted to control crowds, start with Gikomba and start with malls.
Okay, Alan, let's hear from Matthew in Nakuru. Matthew, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
We understand this is a killjoy move.
Yes.
Really, it's not. Because you see, at the end of it all, when the first lockdown was instigated, hao watu wenye wanasema ni walevi sana, they survived for 2 months bila kukunywa hiyo pombe.
You would think.
Not alcoholic. People actually are not alcoholic. Ile ya kufika point ya kupelekwa hospitali ni kierere tu watu wanakuaga nayo. You know, because this guy,
you underestimate the creativity of Kenyans.
You think they did not have a drop for 2 months? My goodness.
So what do you support? What do you support? You support banning of alcohol in public places, but you can drink in private.
Yeah, you take it in the confines of your home. It's okay, but in public, surely people just decide to just get careless.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Richard in Kisumu.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, City. Good morning, Nduh.
Good morning, Richard.
First time caller.
Yeah, another one.
Karibu
Fantastic.
Sana. Asante sana. Now a quick one. The government should just simply close the sale and taking of alcohol. That's one angle. The second economical angle is, as a country, I think EABL is the second taxpayer after Safaricom.
Yep.
So basically, it's either they're generating more money, because from a bottle of beer, which retails at maybe 200 bob, say 90 to 100 bob, goes to the government.
Yep.
So by closing the sale of alcohol, they'll be killing their own coffers.
So, should they go ahead and do that? Remember, the government has already foregone.
Finish strong.
This
Finish
thing of
strong.
banning alcohol is creating problems.
Eric.
But Eric, please continue.
Richard, I was saying the government has already foregone very many taxation measures. It's in the billions of shillings. VAT reduction of income tax, all that is money that the government could have received that it's not receiving. Now we are saying that the second largest taxpayer in the country is going to remit zero.
You know, Eric is not. Eric is being selective with this. It's not as though the government cancelled VAT altogether.
Just reduce.
They just reduce it by a minuscule percentage.
Yeah.
One of those percentages which statistically can almost be irrelevant. 2%.
Remember what happened last week with fuel? You saw what happened to fuel last week?
Yep.
Apparently, fuel prices rose, and the increase was way above 12 shillings on a liter. So these guys are broke. They need the money.
Who is these guys?
The government.
The government.
The government.
You're referring to our government.
Okay.
Yes. So they either close it up or they just open it up. Let people drink and we move on.
Wait, I don't understand. You're saying the government should close its functions?
The government should close up the sale of alcohol.
Okay.
Yes.
Or simply just open up bars.
And let people do
Let guys
what
move
they
on.
want.
As wait for a vaccine.
Wait,
COVID is here with us.
You're saying the obvious thing. The government should either close or open. So what are you
They should officially open.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Thank you very much.
Asante sana.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you.
Isaac, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Another first caller from Eldoret. How are you?
Yeah, I'm a first caller from Eldoret. I'm Isaac.
Karibu sana, Isaac.
Yeah, something. You know, this time is an emergency time. And we have to look at everything the way it is. If government can ban anything to make us healthy, we have to stay healthy. It is when you are alive, you can take alcohol, you can drive, you can do everything you want to do. We should take safety first. I'm Isaac from alcohol, from Eldoret. So that is my own contribution. We don't have to mix things together because this thing has never happened anywhere in the world before. And it has caused many things. You cannot go out, you cannot do this, you cannot mix with friends, it is not only alcohol that it affects, it affects everything. I'm Isaac.
Thank you, Isaac.
I like your program. I'm a presenter in Nigeria. I'm a Nigerian, but I'm now, I'm tired in Kenya because of this.
You're locked down.
Yeah, I'm locked down, but I thank God I'm alive.
It's a love. It's a lovely country to be in, I'm sure.
Yes. I'm also a presenter in Nigeria.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Isaac.
Okay, thank you.
Asante sana. 0719-012-600. Also post your comments on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Do you support this proposal by the CS for Health, Mutai Kagwe? Limit the sale of alcoholic drinks. Consumption, actually.
Andy Karaba says, we would only be conducting social experiments on imposition of a draconian law under the disguise of COVID-19. I am surprised that so many people are willing to give away their freedom and lifestyle for so little. My conclusion?
So little being
so
life.
little being life only. Okay. We all need to get a life, is what he ends with.
Hey, okay.
Right.
It's the thing that you're saying. It's about civil liberties.
And for some,
I have a right, freedom of association, freedom, all these things. When you're telling me that not to consume, what are you telling me?
And for some, it's a cultural disruption.
Yeah, because these are cultural places.
Yes, and drinking is a cultural activity. And if you look at it seriously and closely, it has a very serious following. So, you see, it's not as though the only thing that their followers do the whole day is drink. No, they are ordinary citizens who contribute to other things within the society and the community. This isn't a tough call. My beef, whenever we mention these things, is not in the act itself or even in the provision of the law. It's the manner in which it is being applied. That is where the problem arises. And people who are in government seems to think and favor this method of simply dictating things.
They haven't dictated, CT. This thing.
Which part of this is not a dictation?
It's a proposal, this one. So there's feedback from you and I. And
if I'd only just arrived in this country,
then perhaps we will convince you of that.
But I'm not new to Jerusalem.
Martin, good morning.
Morning, how are you?
Salama kabisa. How is Kisumu?
Kisumu is good.
I can hear it's breezy.
Yes.
Do you support this move by the CS, the government?
I do not, because I think it is very strange. Those are weird proposals. but they are using leeway. The leeway is COVID-19. The COVID-19 is becoming excuse for very, very simplistic and reasonable proposal. So we need, as Kenyans, to be very careful. Yeah.
So you find this draconian and unreasonable. What if the government, what if after meeting with the governors this Friday, President Uhuru Kenyatta came and said, we'd like everybody to stay indoors because we've got to fight COVID-19, and we know COVID-19 is being transmitted when people are meeting one another. If we went the China route, would you say that would be draconian, unreasonable?
I'll not be shocked with the governor's stand, because you have heard of how the COG has been talking. So we are not going to be shocked. They are also, they have been caught flat-footed, the governors, and they may also support the same. So we are not going to be shocked anyway. Yeah.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
City, as we're coming to the conclusion of this, you're saying you're not new to Jerusalem. It's the manner in which the government is approaching this. How would you like the government to approach this particular one? All measures that are being implemented in fight against COVID-19. COVID-19, there's the issue of, number one, wash your hands. Yes, maintain your hygiene. And then the other one is physical and social distancing.
Thank you very much, Eric. That is really a very good question. Now, my response to this very good question is as follows. Eric, it isn't this particular case. It isn't even what the CS is trying to do. It is clear. What I'm talking about, and this is a theme that I will not let up on, is the confidence building that the government has not done enough of. When the people trust their government, they can say anything. They'll sort of like us, what do you mean best? And they'll move along with it. But what do I mean? In the health sector, we were talking this morning to the CEO of Nairobi Hospital. The efforts they've been making. Everything that seems to come out of the public hospitals is disaster upon disaster upon disaster. And then, yesterday, we faced huge amounts of money that have been spent in this very sector. How then do you want, I, as a member of the public, to generate confidence when everything that is being done around COVID doesn't seem to actually produce the results that are intended? That really is my beef.
I don't have a comeback for that.
You know, go work. So city story.
Okay. Sawa.
So?
You eat your beef.
Let me just read Wacha Tuni Some, the proverb for the day, tusikize, tumalize story,
twende nyumbani.
Tutafute story ingine kesho.
All right? Today's proverb.
When a needle falls into a deep well, many people will look into the well, but few will be ready to go down after it. This can apply really, really broadly with any discussion we've had today.
That it can.
Thank you very much for tuning in to the Situation Room today. Join us again tomorrow between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. We'll be right here. Nduh Okoh, say goodbye and say what to expect for the rest of the day.
All right, so goodbye and enjoy uninterrupted music between now and 3 p.m. And then Monique comes in on the Spice Drive until 7 o'clock. And then from 7 to 10, the adults in the room, Barbara, Emmanuel, and Eric. The adults in the room.
The other Eric.
The other Eric.
Yes.
Yes, no.
Okay.
There's only one Eric Latiff.
Goodbye. Have a good day. It's 10 o'clock.